Welcome to Heroes Have Wings, the podcast that gives a voice to the unsung heroes of Army aviation. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. For the Army aviators, crew chiefs, and flight medics who put it all on the line in the heat of battle, this is their opportunity to share untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. From their beginnings to the battlefield, you hear about their hardships, the moments of doubt, and how they overcame impossible odds to save lives. These warriors didn't just fight for survival, they put others above themselves, embodying the true spirit of heroism and selfless service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heroes Have Wings. Today's guest, Jack Dingus, born in southern West Virginia as the youngest of five, Jack grew up mastering outdoor sports before embarking on an illustrious career spanning over 2 decades in the United States Army. From Desert Storm to Bagram and Kandahar, Jack served with grit and integrity, rising to become a drill sergeant and earning countless accolades along the way. Now a safety coordinator for the Tennessee Department of Transportation, Jack finds peace on his 93-acre farm where he tends to his cows and works the land. Known for his unshakable objectivity and belief in doing what's necessary, Jack's story is one of growth, self-discovery, and perseverance. Get ready for a journey into the mind of a true leader and lifelong learner. Jack Dingus, welcome to Heroes Have Wings.
You make me sound real good, man. I mean, way better than I probably deserve.
Nah, I don't agree with that. Jack, man, it is so good to see you.
Man, just so you know, I've been meaning to contact you for a long time. And I can tell you how proud I am, man, watching you, your journey with Fitness Rev and what you were doing out there and, the guts it takes to take off the way you did with what you were doing.
Yeah.
Dude, seriously awesome, man. Big props. You've been doing it, man.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that, Jack. You about to make me cry today, bro. I wasn't ready for this, man, but damn, thank you, man. It's, you being a leader, me being a leader, we don't hear things like that often. And when you do, it's just so rewarding, man. And I want to just thank you for that. And I want to tell the audience, I am so happy to see you. I really am. I mean, I had a flood of emotions when your camera came on, and bro, thank you for spending this time with me and shit, man.
Thank you for having me, bro. Look, hey, for you to think enough of me to want to do this, man, means the world.
There's a lot of people like you that I don't think I expressed the way I felt about you in the Army, because you know how it is. We come and go so much that we don't even get an opportunity to spend a lot of time. And when we get home from deployments, we're just all scattering, going about our own business. And one of the biggest reasons I'm doing this is because I want to reconnect with a lot of people I cared about and the people I don't know that still want to get their stories. But like I said, bro, thank you. And man, I'm happy to see you.
Good to see you, man. Always good to see you.
All right, brother. We're going to get it started. So we're going to start the quick hits. All right, rapid fire. Coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee.
City life, country living?
Oh, country living, definitely.
Summer heat, winter cold?
Probably about a 50-50, but if I got to pick, I guess I'll go winter cold.
Okay. Movies or books?
Movies.
Dog person, cat person?
Dogs.
Beach vacation, mountain retreat?
Mountain retreat.
Wake up early, stay up late?
Early. Wake up as early as you can.
How early you wake up?
Well, I was up at 4:30 this morning.
Nice. Action movies or comedies?
Probably action movies. Depending on the mood, of course. Sometimes you just want you just want to veg and see something funny. So it's
need a good laugh, right? Camping or road trip?
Road trip.
Texting or
calling?
calling?
Get me in on camping, dude.
Oh, bro, you're not. Just real quick, I hate to camp. I tell people, they say, "You hate camping?" I said, "Listen, when you were a survival instructor for 2.5 years in the Army, trust me, you will hate the woods."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Texting or calling?
Text. I prefer to call, but texting is just so much more convenient. I like to hear voices. I like, uh, but texting has become the method. I mean, that's modern world. A bit of a dinosaur, I guess, with telephone, but texting is probably what I do most, and it's more efficient.
Yeah, I like the efficiency of
Yeah.
the efficiency in it as well. All right, so man, let's get started, man. Let's talk about your childhood. Grew up in southern West Virginia.
Yeah.
What was your family dynamic like?
Man, it was real good. I came. I had 3 sisters and a brother, half sisters and half brother. But I mean, they were all older than me, so they were all sisters and brothers to me. It wasn't any. Um, and yeah, everything was good, man. It was a good home. My parents got along well. My dad was a great influence, former Air Force, intelligence, and so I grew up kind of pretty free. I like Southern West Virginia is pretty rural, and so a lot of time fishing, hunting, that kind of thing.
What was the age difference between you and your siblings?
My brother was the next one closest to me, and he's 4 years older than me.
Okay, what is the age difference between your oldest sibling?
I guess that would be 8 years.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
So can you share with the audience your parents' story, how they meet real quick, and what their dynamic was?
Yeah, my dad came back to West Virginia from when he got out of the Air Force, and my mother had just moved back there from Florida with 4 kids. Her first husband was killed in a horrible accident, just tragic. And so they wound up, they met, and my dad decided to take on the responsibility of 4 other kids, and then I came along. So pretty big. It was kind of a big deal, when you talk about a man taking responsibility and being responsible, and that's a lot.
And I wanted to add to that. I'm saying, for your dad to take on a woman that just lost her husband in a tragic accident and 4 kids, and take on 4 stepchildren, no kids of his own, that says a lot about who your dad is. And man, I take my hat off to him, because that is a lot to take on.
Man, a great character.
How was your relationship with your mom and dad?
It was really good. It was really good. I mean, high school, I was kind of a punk. I didn't care nothing about school. I didn't, where my grades were horrible. My grades were terrible. So, I was passing everything, but like, I honestly don't think I did homework like one time. Like, I could pass the test, I could pass the class, so I didn't really care, and I think they wanted me to do a lot better than that. I was capable of a lot more than that. But all in all, they were just, they tried to encourage me to do better, support me in doing better. Whether I was sensible enough to do it or not, it's a completely different animal. But I always had a good relationship.
Are they role models in your life?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. My dad went to work every day for the railroad, and I remember, when I was young, he was, it's where I grew up is Williamson, West Virginia. It's the heart of the billion-dollar coal fields. It's all coal mines. That's either you're in a coal mine, you're on the railroad, or you're doing something that supports those industries. And so he worked in a roundhouse in the rail yard, repairing coal cars, cutting, welding, riveting, working heavy, hard work until, later on he became an inspector, and, he moved out into the train yard. And, even that, you're walking miles of train, and in the weather, very hard work. And watching him do that for, no other reason than to ensure that the family was taken care of. That was doing what you have to do to take care of your own. So it's very much a lesson I learned.
Yeah. I mean, that's being a real man right there, doing what you have to do to take care of your family. How do you watching your dad work that hard? How did that shape you as the man you are today?
Well, I mean, it told me I have to do the same thing. I mean, you have to, work for what you want. Take care of yours. If you're, put in the effort. Make it as good as you can make. I mean, you can get by, or you can make the extra effort to make it better. To try to, strive to be better. To constantly strive to be better.
Yeah, that's a nugget right there. How long was your dad in the Air Force for?
8 years.
8 years?
Yeah. He was an intelligence cryptographer. And so, he bounced around a lot in Germany, Turkey. He was in Maine for a while, and he was coming up on a re-enlistment window, and he got orders to Vietnam. And it was like, he was planning on getting out. They're like, well, you're going to Vietnam. He's like, no, I'm getting out. He's like, I'm damn sure not re-enlisted with orders to Vietnam. That's just crazy. I mean, why would you do that? Yeah. Wasn't planning on it anyway. You certainly helped make the choice. So,
what'd your mom do growing up?
I just took care of the kids.
Just took care of the kids?
Took care of the kids in the house. She had some jobs on and off, this and that, just for extra money or whatever. But for the most part, she made sure that the household ran.
And a huge shout. I want to give a huge shout out to your mother, because running a household with 5 kids and taking care of a husband and making sure everything. Tell me about it, bro. I got my one baby right now, and I got 5 myself, but they're all older. But my one baby right now is kicking my tail, and for your mother to take care of everybody and hold down a household, that's a very noble thing. I want all the mothers, the stay-at-home moms, to know that what you do is very, very important. And it helps build and get your family where it needs to get to. So huge shout out to your mom on that.
Yeah, she did a great job. She really did.
Talked about it lightly. You didn't do your homework. How were you as a kid growing up, and how much of a pain in the ass were you to the mom and dad?
I guess I wasn't too bad. It's not like I was out doing like illegal stuff or whatever. I don't know. I wasn't an exceptionally social person. Kid, I had friends, and I, played ball, baseball in the neighborhood or what, but I wasn't, all into social kind of things, I stayed out of trouble. Like I said, usually I had a fishing rod in my hand, or I was, in the woods with a shotgun or something, I remember being, 13, 14 years old, and I would come home from school, grab a shotgun, and Southern West Virginia is very mountainous, hilly. You're either in the floodplain of a river, or you're on the mountainside. That's it. There's no. I'd stay on a ridge somewhere till dark, and then find my way out in the dark.
Yeah.
It's just, I was probably troubled. I was probably worrisome in some of the things I did like that. But
yeah, back then our parents. I mean, we had a lot of freedom back then. Our parents really didn't. Yeah. They weren't. It isn't what it is today, and I think a lot of kids and young people, they don't understand the experiences that we had. Those freedoms that our parents gave us, and man, we grew up, but we learned life, especially with our other siblings. And man, I appreciated my childhood. Seeing what childhood is like nowadays, man, we were blessed in the 70s and the 80s to do the things we did.
Absolutely, man. I mean, the world is such a different place now that there are very few places left where you can let kids be that way, with any kind of, faith or trust. I mean, the world was different then. And
I think one of the biggest things we had back then is we trusted each other.
Yeah.
We knew as neighbors that we were going to take care of each other. We're going to take care of other people, keep an eye on other people's kids. And that's one of the biggest issues I think we have in society nowadays. There's no trust, and people, it is what it is, right? But I think that's one of the biggest things we had back then was trust. I knew that if I was going to act up, the lady across the street was going to tell my mama was going to deal with me, and we're just going to go from there. But we don't have that nowadays.
Yeah, well, and you know, it's hard to have trust now, man. There's so many, and you know, it's probably. I mean, the truth is, Jason, the world probably wasn't any better back then. We just didn't know how bad it was. The same crap was happening. We just didn't know it. You know, ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Jack, you got a very valid point there that ignorance is bliss, and just not knowing we're just back there just fat, dumb, and happy. Nothing's gonna happen to us because we don't know, right?
Didn't happen to the last kid, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
but hey, things change for a reason. At what point did you realize, all right, I'm gonna join the Army, and how did that happen?
you know, man, I don't remember a time when I didn't plan to join the military in some capacity. You know, I always thought Air Force. You know, my dad was Air Force, my brother was Air Force. But like, I knew that, like I said, Southern West Virginia is pretty economically strained. There's, you know, the coal industry is about the only thing there, and so I didn't want to do that, and I knew that my future was going to be somewhere else. So, you know, I always planned on leaving. You know, I mean, recruiting's pretty easy in that area, or, you know, recruiters just like, hey kid, want 2 free pair of boots? Come on in, you know. So, I mean, but so I just always knew, I think, in some way that, you know, one branch of the military or the other, that I was going to go.
Yeah, and I think one of the commonalities, and you were a drill sergeant, so we're going to touch on this later, and you probably could attest to this. I think one of the biggest commonalities in the military is that a lot of the young people that join the military, we need a way out. We need to try to find a better way to, you know, progress in life and make our quality of life better. And I'm thankful. I know a lot of other people are thankful that at least the military gives us that opportunity, right? Or like you said, we could stay in our small towns and our big cities and succumb to the situations at hand, but we get those opportunities. How's your relationship with your siblings?
Good. We all get along pretty well. I don't see them as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in West Tennessee. My parents moved to East Tennessee. I have a couple of sisters out there now, and got a sister and a brother that stayed closer to home. We still meet up at my parents' house now and then, and, you know,
Nice.
But yeah, we all get along well. We don't really have any issues.
That's good that your parents are still together. You still have that strong family dynamic, and that's huge, man. That's something I love family. Even Thanksgiving just passed, and that's one thing I was gonna make sure I was with the people I loved and I cared about and I care about. And I think that's another thing the Army teaches us, right? That these moments aren't forever, and they are few and far between, because we spent a lot of time away from home. But so cherish them while you have them. What was the experience like joining? Like, how did you join? How did that whole thing play out?
You know, I remember, took the ASVAB, of course, and, you know, when it became, you know, when it was available, and I scored pretty well, as compared, I guess. You know, I did all right. It was like, you know, 114, 115, something like that ballpark.
That was your GT score?
Yeah, it was a GT.
I'm realizing all you guys got higher GT scores than me.
Well, you know, it's funny because I realized that GT score don't really mean crap, right? Like, you get those when you're coming in, but after that, it don't mean nothing, right?
You just got to get in.
But yeah, that's it, you know. And so, you know, I had recruiters calling me quite a bit. And, you know, the reason I called the Army recruiter, believe it or not, the message got messed up. I thought it was the Air Force dude. And so I called back, and it was the Army recruiter. And, you know, but, you know, I'll be rude. I talked to the guy. And I'm not like what he had to say, you know. And at the time, like, had I chosen the Air Force, yeah, I could have done well, you know. But joining the Air Force, you had to pick 3 branches of the Air Force, and you were guaranteed to get one of those 3 branches, right? So, you know, no idea what you're actually going to be doing. They control it. You know, the one pitch that the Army recruiter had that the others didn't have was, you'll sign up for your job, and unless you screw it up, that's what you're going to do. It's on you.
And you got to royally screw it up. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, like you know, like
you got to royally screw it up. You know the deal. The Army's going to do what it takes to get you to where you need to get you. But you have to be a can of ass, man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so like you can, so I was like, okay, you know, if I do screw it up, then at least it's on me, right? Like nobody else chose my fate. That was me. So that's why I went with the Army. And, you know, I was going to, you know, I was, you know, looking through all the MLS books and all that crap. And I was like, man, I don't know what to do, you know. And I wasn't one of those kids that had like some aspiration of, I want to be this in life, right? I was like, I want to see what life is, right? And so I'm like looking through this book, and I definitely knew I wanted aviation. And just because I was like, well, worst case, I mean, it's a skill I can use after, right? I mean, like I can be an aircraft mechanic, you know. And so, but I was going to do Apaches. And I remember my recruiter was like, look, man, you want Apaches? We can get you Apaches. That's easy enough. But do you want to fly away in it, or do you want to watch it fly away? I was like, okay, so what do I do to fly away in it? You know? And so he was like, well, Black Hawks are used, you know? So when I enlisted, I was 67 November, UH-1, utility helicopter repair. And man, I loved Hueys, great airframes. So that's what I picked and signed up. And delayed entry, I signed up in January of 90, and I graduated high school that June. And then I left for basic training in August.
If you can explain what that means for the audience, the delayed entry program, Jack.
Delayed entry program is pretty much just you go ahead and sign, you know, sign your life away. And then but you don't leave for several months, you know, pending graduation of the school, or, you know, like for me, I wanted to graduate high school, but I also wanted to take a couple months off before I just mailed into the Army, you know, so I put it for kind of late summer. But, you know, you can project, you know, at the time, I think you could project like out, like a year out or something, you know, so you could delay for a while.
Yeah, I did. I signed up the day after my birthday, April 26th, and then I left in July 20th. I left. So it was about 60 days, 60 to 90 days. I can't recall.
Give yourself a little bit of time, you know?
Yeah. Well, I was in community college at the time, so I had to finish that part, and then
right.
I
Get that semester done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how'd your parents feel when you told them you're going to join the military, and how'd your dad feel about you joining the Army and not the Air Force?
I don't think they were big fans, but it wasn't a surprise. Like I said, it was what I'd always planned to do. It was, you know, it wasn't like it was something. But I mean, they were supportive. Like I said, I don't think they really liked it, but they were supportive.
All right, so you leave for basic.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you do basic at?
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
How is that?
It was rough. You know, I showed up. I mean, basic training is supposed to be tough, right? I mean, that's what it's for. You know, but you know, it's like I showed up in August and it was super hot. By the time I graduated, you know, in like, you know, October, it's like 32 degrees in the morning. It's cold, you know, so it's like you kind of experience this. That was a pretty big change in throughout that 2 months, you know, but it was definitely, you know, your foot marches in the hills in Kentucky are definitely different than they were when I was drill sergeant at South Carolina. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's yeah, but I'm not used to being in the mountains. Things weren't that bad. Physically, I wasn't really ready. So it definitely, I had an adjustment period. You know, the first few weeks were rough. Just like I said, I didn't prepare myself physically for it. And I was like, man, 1,000 other kids done it, I'll do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, and you know, I mean, it wasn't that bad. Evidently, I made it, but definitely, though, you know, the struggle was real in the beginning, you know, the first month or so.
How close is Fort Knox to your hometown?
I think it was about a 5-hour drive, 6-hour drive. So, you know, first time I ever got on a plane, was there. You know, I went to the Met station was in Beckley, West Virginia. So I went to Beckley, West Virginia, and then kind of a little puddle jumper to Lexington. I think it was Lexington, and that was the first time I ever flew in an airplane. You know, and you get off the airplane, there's, you know, they got some dude waiting there to grab you up. It's like, all right, over here, you know, and then they put you on a bus, and then, you know, so, but it was, you know, it was an experience. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say it was good or bad. It was just,
Besides the physical aspect, what was the hardest part about basic?
but you know, I'd never really been away from home.
Oh,
so, you know, there's definitely homesickness. You know, I mean, like, you know, yeah, I mean, I've been away, I've traveled some, but not like for weeks or, you know, whatever. I mean, it's like, so definitely that was an adjustment period.
You know, Jack, you hit something very important. I think that's something we don't talk about as much, homesickness.
Yeah.
I felt homesick while I went to basic, deployments. Like, you'll experience this homesickness throughout your whole military career, and it's something
You'll never get used to it.
Yeah, you never get used to it. Even now, right? If I leave for a little while and I'm away from my daughter, I'm getting homesick. And I'm like, man, it's time for me to get home. I gotta go see my baby.
Yeah, the only difference that we go through, at least that Albert, was home was relative, right? Like, it didn't matter if I was, wherever I was stationed, that was home, right? And it didn't matter how long I'd been there. When I went, you know, deployed or temporary duty or something like that, that's where I wanted to get back to, right? And it wasn't always about get back to West Virginia or back to, you know, it was, you get homesick for a lot of different places, which is kind of, it probably seems kind of crazy to a lot of folks, but like I said, homesickness is relative. It's really, home is where you're hanging your hat.
That's right, baby.
You know, and that,
right.
whatever that is, that's what you're going to be homesick for.
Yep. So you get done with basic, go down to Fort Rucker. Now that's a huge, leaving Fort Knox, then going down to Fort Rucker, which is Fort Novasil. Now that is night and day. How was that for a culture shock for you?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, you're still AIT, so you still kind of got that, you know, trainee mentality, and, you know, but like, you know, the weather was certainly a lot better, and, you know, so, but yeah, it was definitely, you know, AIT's a little more freedoms, a little, you know, things are a little better. As long as you know, pass your PT test and do all those things you're supposed to do, you know, you know, you get some weekend time, and, you know, so there's, Fort Rucker was good. It was good to me.
How long was your AIT? Because I know it was air aviation, so it's longer than some others, but how long was it?
Man, for UH-1s back then, it was like 8 weeks.
That's it?
Yeah, but I didn't do 8 weeks.
What'd you do?
I did 6 weeks.
How'd you pull that off?
Well, you know, this is the end of 90, right? And we've already drawn the line in the sand. January 15, Desert Storm, right? Like that's the time they had to get out of Kuwait, right? So they were, I mean, it was a big push. I mean, all the way through basic training, everything we did in Mop 4. I mean, it was crazy how you just, you know, you prepare them for, we're ready. This whole time we're gearing up for this war. And so they actually cut 2 weeks off of my basic training so that I would graduate the week before Christmas.
Really?
I got to go home for Christmas for a week. And then I had to be in Germany. So I went to, you know, took leave en route to Germany.
And who were you stationed with in Germany?
I was with the Bravo Company 8158. It was a non-divisional AVM unit. You know, when I showed up to the replacement battalion in Frankfurt, they're like, "Hey, you're going to Alpha 8158. They're in Riyadh. So, you know, we're going to give you all this desert stuff. You're going to get on a plane next Tuesday, going to Saudi, right?" So I'm like, crap, you know, this Skeeter Wing private, you know, just trying to figure out the life, you know, and now I'm going to, you know, I'm finna go get ready to cross into Kuwait and Iraq, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, then like the next day they're like, "No, you're going to Bravo Company. They're in Hannah." You know, you know, so I was like,
could you explain what an AVM is?
oh, well, yeah, you get two different types. The different echelon levels of maintenance. You know, the A, you know, your AVUM is your unit level maintenance. That's your flight companies and your in-house maintenance company, so to speak. And then the AVM level is your second level. Basically, when the repair takes longer or it's more intricate, usually it'll go to the AVM company for that repair. And at that time, the AVM, we had 3 float aircraft that belonged to us that were UH-1s that we maintained. And then we had, organic aircraft was 3. And then we had like 2 float aircraft. So if somebody would bring us one that's banged up, we give them one of the floats, fix theirs, and it becomes a float. You know, it's a whole property book transfer nightmare, historical records nightmare for that to happen. But that's the way it was done. I don't think the Army does any of that. It's like that anymore. It hasn't in many, many years. But that's the way we operate.
So you show up to, how old are you when you got to Germany?
I was 19. No, not quite 19. Almost 19.
Little fun fact: Hanau, Germany, was my first duty station as well.
Really?
Yeah, but I was with the one. I can't remember. They assigned me to. I was out in Fliegerhorst.
Yeah, I was on Fliegerhorst.
Yeah. So I was assigned to a maintenance company there, but they sent me out to Bootingen 11 Cab because I was a tank turret mechanic.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're familiar. That was my first duty station as well. That's why I said we have a lot of similarities. We'll talk about them as we go along, but you're going to be surprised. But it's crazy how your career and my career pretty much very similar paths. And this is a good reason why I love hearing everybody's story. So 19 years old in Hanau, did you get to experience any of the nice things of Germany, or was it like straight to Desert Storm, all business, no fun?
Man, I spent 2 years in Germany, never deployed, never did any of that. Like I said, our sister company went, they did the deployment part. And so I was just spinning wrenches. That's all, and, but yeah, I traveled all over Germany. Yeah, had a great time. But I'll be honest, the unit and the work, awful. The unit was not what I would like to have been for a first duty station. I mean, I remember knife fights in the barracks. There was no morale. It was crazy. And like when I got there, you had all these cats that were supposed to be leaving, but they didn't stop loss because of Desert Storm. Right.
Can you explain stop loss?
Sure. Stop loss, basically the Army stops movement, right? Usually beginning with conflict, to keep units staffed where they're at until they can make changes as they need to, right? They'll fill units that are short with new trainees. They'll fill, but the immediate stop keeps a unit from losing critical people at the wrong time.
And just to add on to that, Jack, you said something about morale. That does affect morale because you got a lot of people think they're leaving and then bam, stop. That means you can't go to schools unless it's a priority MOS like special forces, becoming an aviator or something like that. Your tail is not moving. So that did piss a lot of people off.
Yeah. And the whole UH-1 squad, the whole team was stop lost. Okay. Except me. I'm like the new guy. Right. So but I was grateful that those cats were there because I learned a ton phasing UH-1s in the first, 8 months, 9 months until stop loss ended. That all those cats left at once. There. And like I said, we had 3 organic aircraft, a couple of float aircraft, work coming in and out, and it just seemed like I could never, they brought in a couple of guys from other places in Germany, and I don't know, just like, one cat had an E5 that wound up, he was a Huey guy. He winds up working RNU because he shows up drunk for a flight to battalion commander. Another dude just has nervous breakdown. They roll his, send him off somewhere.
Yeah.
And eventually, like, the Huey section is like a Black Hawk dude, a 58 Alpha Charlie dude, and me. Right? You know, and I'm the only one that knows how to work on Hueys. And I've been in the Army grand total of what, a year? Oh crap! I think I know, but I don't know crap, right? And you know, I'm still crewing aircraft too. You know, the organics and so you know, parts runs or you know whatever, and so it was a pretty busy schedule for the first. My first tour in the Army was it was a whirlwind. I mean, like I did so many awesome things that I have fleeting memories of that I just, you know, it's just like, oh crap, there was so much of it.
So much. That's where that happens to me too. It's so many memories that it's hard to even maintain, and then dealing with, you know, me personally dealing with mental health issues and trying to suppress things, and in the process I'm forgetting shit. I'm just like,
The whole
damn.
time you're trying to cram the bad stuff away, right? I mean, that's what.
Correct. And in the process, you forget all the good shit that happened
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So,
exactly. You know,
what was your most memorable time in Germany?
I think probably, you know, we did yeah, every American unit over there has or at that time had a sister unit in the German Army that we were trained with, or, you know, we were kind of affiliated with, you know, at that time you still had the Cold War mentality, you know, uh, and, but I remember we went to a change of command with our sister unit in Germany. And, it was like a 3-day party, you know, but, you know, I got to fly on a BO 105, left seat BO 105. That was pretty cool. It's, there were a lot of good things, but you know, that week, you know, that couple of days kind of stands out as a good time, you know.
Did you get to travel all over Europe while you were there?
I did. I traveled a lot. You know, but the great thing about being over there is you can literally just get on a train on the weekend, you know, and go somewhere, get off the train and do what you want to do and go back. So, you know, having the trains, easy travel made moving around over there a lot easier. But, you know,
That's one of my biggest regrets when I was in Germany for 2 years. I didn't travel as much as I would like. I was just lack of turns. I was just dumb then. I don't know why I didn't travel. I traveled all over Germany. I've been all over Germany.
right.
But I never left Germany. I wish I went to all the other countries, and man, I regret that because I had this mentality, and a lot of us young soldiers always had this mentality. Oh, we'll get another opportunity to do this again. Not realizing that would be the only time I ever go to Germany. And
Yeah. There's a whole lot of times I look back at my career that I didn't take advantage of things that I was like, I'll get a chance.
yep, I'll get a chance later. And
It just never works out.
I don't think when we're young adults, we don't understand how fast time flies and the concept of time and how long it takes, you know, for the military to get anything done. So you miss out a lot. What was your rank when you left Germany?
I was a specialist when I was in Germany.
And where'd you go next?
Fort Drum, New York.
Damn.
Yeah, it was that you know, I tell people about Fort Drum, you know, summers up there were awesome. Both days were really nice. But you get about 2 days. So, but yeah, I went straight from Germany to Fort Drum. Yeah. It's the day I arrived at Fort Drum, I mean, it was snowing. Like I drove, you know, went back to my parents' house in West Virginia. And, I had bought a truck. I sent my dad the money. You know, he went ahead and bought my truck, had it waiting for me when I got there. And so then I'm headed to Fort Drum. And when I arrived at Fort Drum, the night I got there, it was snowing so bad. You know, it was like 8 inches of snow on the roads, but like nothing changed. Like people were still driving around like it's a normal day, bro. So I'm like, well, I don't have to actually be there to sign in until tomorrow. So I stopped in Watertown, which is right outside Fort Drum. I get a hotel room, slept in the night to get up. You know, I don't want to drive into post and sign in and all that stuff. And I drove around Fort Drum for like probably 2 hours, right? All the road signs were covered up with snow. So like, I'm trying to find certain, routes that I had from, whatever welcome packet or whatever told me to go this way, right? I can't tell where any of that's at because the snow's going sideways, so all the signs are cut.
Jack, let me ask something real quick. He didn't have a GPS back then either.
No, y'all, you were winging it, but
yeah. So if your ass don't have a map, you are it's called shit out of luck.
Yeah, that's right. The welcome packet got this little BS map in it, right? like to tell you what to do. That thing's useless. And then, so I'm like driving around forever, and I pull into a shop at, find out, okay, like I got to be like on the backside post, right? Like somewhere weird. And I walk in and I'm looking at the "You Are Here" map in the shop at, shit, I'm back at the front gate, like right where I came in. Right? Which it sounds ridiculous, but it was so easy to do because I showed up there in January, and I mean, it's almost like driving in tunnels up there because the snow is just piled up constantly, on the side of the roads. So finally, I just kind of looked at that map long enough, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take my second right, I'm going to take my third left, and I just memorized this pattern that I was going to use to get where I had to get to, and I got to the reception time. But yeah, my introduction to Fort Drum was in a snowstorm, trying to figure out where I had to be. So I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome.
So when you got there, were you back doing UH-1 work?
Yeah. But the last UH-1 assault company in the United States Army.
Really?
Yeah.
How long were you there for?
I was at Fort Drum for about 5 years.
You did y'all deactivate the UH-1 company or unit, and then what happened there?
Well, I mean, I first got there. I went through RO progression, readiness level progression, first and air crew member, and which was something I'd never done before. I'd crewed quite a bit, but like when I was leaving Germany, our battalion IP was like, "Hey, by the way, there's this new thing now where like you crew chiefs have to have an IETF, an individual air crew training file, right?" So I went ahead and made you one up. Here it is, right? But I had flown goggles in Germany, but it was just some dude was like, "Hey man, this is how you put them on. This is how you adjust them. Okay, you good? Here we go." That was my progression in goggles.
That's
I learned
crazy.
sling loads. It's like, okay, here's what I need you to do. You're gonna hang out the helicopter. You're gonna tell me where I need to go to put this load down where it needs to be to get hooked up to this load. Okay, I'll do that. Right. So that's how I learned. I think my squad leader flew with me one time, showed me how to like do the basic stuff, and then after that I was on my own. And then he left, and then they all PCS'd. So, but so I actually went through an RO progression, which was cool. But yeah, we were actually supposed to go to Somalia, palletized all the gear, had the aircraft already, and then the Black Hawk Down scenario happened. And they were like, okay, no single engine aircraft in country. So we're like, crap, you're ready to go. We're literally 10 days from loading aircraft out, and they stopped us. But since your stuff's all packed up, they went ahead and deactivated us. So
really?
Oh yeah, it was crazy. It was like all of a sudden. So then it was like, we're still a company. We're still, you don't just get rid of 16 UH-1s and all these people.
Correct.
But we didn't have a designation. They went ahead and stood up the Black Hawk company. That was, the new Alpha company in Black Hawks. So we became Penguin Company. That's what we called ourselves, Penguin Company. We can't fly and you can't make us. That was our motto. But we that was a pretty weird time. It was like,
yeah, that sounds weird. Like, what did they do with all those aircraft?
Eventually we just bled them off to other organizations. They would come get them ones and twosies, here and there, and it was weird because we'd still do missions somehow. It was just a really crazy dynamic at the time. It's of existing and not existing all in the same.
That's crazy. So I just want to be clear. You one day UH-1s, very next day, bam, Blackhawks, H-60s.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was not in Blackhawks. I was still in this thing, this leftover Huey company. And from there, I went to the Cav. Because they were still Alpha Charlies and Cobras. And they were Alpha Chucks and Cobras, and they had a UH-1 as their down there craft recovery bird. So I went to crew the Darkbird. Myself and one other E5 from the company went. He was the TI. I was the crew member for the Darkbird. That's how we existed. And that lasted for, I guess, about 6 months. And the Kiowa, they were transitioning to Kiowas. So we do a Cat B rotation, get them certified in Kiowas. All the Cobras and the Alpha Chucks are gone. And finally, somebody at DA is like, hey, you don't have any paperwork that says you can have a UH-1 in lieu of a Blackhawk, because they were supposed to have a Blackhawk for their down there craft recovery. So some cat from Fort Polk, Louisiana, crew comes up, do all the inspections, all that, take my aircraft. Now I'm just in the cab with nothing. I was the tool room guy,
Yeah. The Army gonna find some shit for you to do.
Oh yeah. It's finding crap to do, right? It's a miserable experience. Miserable.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah.
So that lasted a couple of months, and finally I got to the medevac at Fort Drum. So I moved over to the 229th Med. They were still using UH-1s, and I spent a couple of years there medevacing, and I've been there about. I was there for, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, and became the FI and then the SI pretty quickly. And that's how I existed. It's medevacing Fort Drum for the next couple of years.
When the Army does major transitions like that, the people that their MOS is going away, it's a very confusing time, because everywhere you go, you try to find answers. No one has answers, and this is what they tell you. Go talk to so-and-so. Go talk to so-and-so. And by the time you're done talking to so-and-so sent you right back where you started. And you're just like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, it just becomes so it was one of those things that, and I was, you want to transition, but at that time in the Army, it was a little different as far as opportunities to transition. Like, you might say, okay, I want out of this MOS. And they're like, okay, that's okay. Well, here, you can pick one of these 4 MOSs. And it's the crappiest MOSs that nobody else wants to do. Like, yeah, I'm going to go be a, bath specialist, bath and laundry specialist or some crap. So I was just like, well, I'm just going to stick it out. Right. And, but again, I enjoyed the medevac. At that time, there was no competing civilian medevac up there. So we would launch for military or civilian. It was, it did a lot of interesting missions. My first ever medevac mission was the hoist mission. And, lifting folks out of a logger out of the woods in BFE upstate New York, so yeah, you do, a couple of cool things like that, and it makes it worth it,
And that was back at a time, like you just said, where the military did civilian and military medevac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they started.
We launch for anything.
Damn.
Whoever needed us.
So how long were you in the Army by the time you got wrapped up at Fort Drum?
So that would have been, I left there in 97. So, in the Army about 7 years. Still a specialist. Another downside of being an MOS that's going away Army-wide was there's no promotions.
No promotions, damn.
When we start talking about trying to get, promotion points for sergeant, maxed out. Like, and when there's few of you, you don't get school opportunities to get points like you would, normally get. So, it's not like, nobody's using, a quality school slot on the guy that's going away, right?
Yeah. Damn, that sucks, man. Just you saying it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you just feel like you're stuck, you know, it's like you're
Yeah.
in this box and that's where you're at. And that's
Quickly touch on how the promotion system and the promotion points, how that worked?
sure, you know, well, you know, up until E4, it's pretty much you know, a time and grader selection process. And, you know, I was actually very fortunate making E4 very quickly in the Army. Um, I remember I had to go to a board to make E4. But it was basically, you know, they had some early promotion slots.
Yeah,
They
I
told all
remember
the
them.
platoon sergeants, hey, send your best two, right? And this was back when I was in the AVM. You know, it's about a 300-person company. So I got like, I don't know, competing against like 10 people for these 2 or 3 slots. And, but I won the board and I got promoted pretty quickly there. But then it dead stopped because to E5, you have to go through, you know, you gain points through schools, physical training scores, you know, a lot of ways, awards, whatever. All those things add up to points. And the Army will drop the points low enough to get the number of people they need. So if they're short 3 E5s, they lower the points until they get 3 E5s, and then the points go back up. So, and at that point, you know, the points for UH1 guys was all the way there. It was maxed out, and the opportunities to get points were almost non-existent.
With you saying all that, when were you like, man, something has to change and has to change fast?
Oh man, I'd been in that mode for a couple of years, you know, at that point, you know, like, but like I said, I tried to change MOSs and I was getting offered like tanker or, like I said, bath and laundry specialist, or, you know, it's crap that like nobody wants to do. I don't want to be a tanker. I'm not going from aviation to tanks, you know? And, so I remember, you know, my daughter was born in 96 and, March of 96. And, so I remember I landed from a training flight. My team leader comes running out, squad leader, and, he's like, hey, you got to go. Your wife's water just broke. All right. So I'm throwing crap in my, you know, locker, hauling ass. And so then, you know, my daughter was born. That was pretty awesome time.
Did you get married at Fort Drum?
I did, yeah.
Where'd you meet your wife?
At Fort Drum, right there. She actually, a friend of hers, been dating a warrant officer in my company, and we met through them.
Nice.
And, so
love at first sight type thing.
Pretty close, yeah. I mean, we got close pretty quickly, and you know, we lived together for several years before we got married. Just as, you know, I always said, you know, marriage is something I'm doing one time, right? I'm gonna know for sure before I do it, because, you know, if it don't work out, you're doing it again, right? You know,
and you're still married now, right?
We are, yeah.
Let's go. Your wife's name?
Kathy.
Kathy. Shout out to Kathy for hanging in there for that long military career and supporting you.
Man, she put up with a lot.
Shout out to all the military spouses that hold it down for their spouses, man. It's a tough job to have. It's a very thankless job as well. It's very important to have somebody strong in your corner to hold the nucleus of the family together, take care of home while we're out doing our missions. So shout out to all those spouses. What was your biggest takeaway from Fort Drum? Sorry.
I think, you know, at Fort Drum, I really became technically proficient. That was where I really, in UH1s, I gained a knowledge across the entirety of that airframe's, you know, abilities and maintenance. And so, like I said, by the time I left there, I was a standardization instructor for enlisted folks. You know, that was back before they didn't have a course for that. Like, you didn't go down to Novacell or Rucker and go through the FI course or SI course. It was an OJT, you know what I mean? So, but, you know, I did a lot of maintenance. I did a lot, you know, so I learned a lot about Aeromed and just really where I became the most proficient, in particular in air crew method. So when I got to the Sinai, they had left the SI job open because they saw me in the inbound roster. A couple of folks over there knew me. So I hit the ground, did a check ride on the SI, and now I'm rolling. Still a specialist.
Yeah. North Camp or South Camp?
I was North Camp.
North Camp.
Because I was standardization, it wouldn't send me to South Camp. So,
okay. Yeah, just so you know, I was in the MFO as well. I went in 2005 November, and I was there for the Black Hawk UH-1 transition.
Okay.
And I have pictures of the very last flight in UH-1 in the MFO.
Wow. Did you fly Hueys over there?
No, I got to fly. Yeah, I showed up. The Black Hawk started getting there, and then I was there. I was one of the first few crews to get the Black Hawks up and running in the Sinai.
Man, that's awesome. Did you ever get to fly Hueys?
No.
I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for that. I wish
I did, because I'd have flew the hell out of that thing.
Awesome aircraft.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was down in, not to cut you off, I was down in South Camp. So I was,
they had living the life.
Yeah, I was living the life. My backyard was the beach, man. It was good living back there.
Yeah, I bounced back and forth a lot. You know, I had to go down there quite a bit for check rides and this and that, and, you know, and then I'd go down there and just, well, you know, you always try to get down to South Camp if you're in North Camp. You have your tax exemption, right? Yeah, so you fly over the Red Sea, you get the tax. Yeah. So, but I would always try to get down there, do check rides, whatever, do Tron Island missions. The mission down there was great.
Yeah, really, it was.
But like I said, most of my time I ended up spending on North Camp.
Yeah. I think one of the things we learned really fast in MFO is that, and it's just a capability thing. It's not saying Black Hawk is better than UH-1, none of that. It's just a Black Hawk could lift a lot more than the UH-1. So we had a lot of downtime because we're refueling and restocking these guys with one mission. We didn't have to do it as often as the H-1s. Right. But it was still a good experience. A lot of over water flying. We got to fly close to Israel. It was some good stuff up there.
Yeah, it was, you know, and, you know, performance wise, I mean, as far as like what the aircraft can do, there's no comparison between UH-1s and UH-6s. I mean, to me, what I loved about UH-1s was the simplicity of the airframe, you know, just in how easy it was to work on, and mechanical versus electronic. Yeah, mechanical doesn't change unless acted on by an outside force, right? I mean, it's a mechanical thing versus, you know, electronics. Those can get a little finicky. So I loved UH-1s for the simplicity, and it was easy to keep a 90% OR rate with UH-1s. You know, they were cheap, efficient, great airframes. I love it.
And what's OR rate?
It's your operational radius rate. You know, normally you're looking at about, you know, I think the DA standard normally is about 70 to 75%, depending on the airframe. I think it's different for each airframe. Think about it. But for UH-1s, like I said, it was super easy to keep a 85 or 90% OR rate.
And a huge shout out to the UH-1 community. Them guys that's a legendary aircraft. It changed the way we fought wars, and it was very pivotal on the battlefield during Vietnam and other places. But UH-1 is a legendary aircraft in the military. So it held its own for what the purpose it needed to do.
Absolutely.
Sinai, you were there for a year. What was your biggest takeaway and your most memorable moment in Sinai?
I think my first tour in the Sinai was, my biggest takeaway was probably, don't go back to the Sinai. It wasn't that bad. It was, but it was, you know, fairly unremarkable, really. I mean, honestly, it's like, you know, you got this little tiny post and there's like 8 bars on it, you know, so all I really did, like literally, my first tour in the Sinai was, you know, I would go to work. After work, I went to the gym. I would spend an hour and a half to 2 hours in the gym, go to the DFAC, stop at a bar, start all over tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, that was just how I lived. So it was just about, getting the job done.
Yeah, it was definitely Groundhog Day there. Even when I was there, it was the same thing. Wake up. Especially the days were long when we didn't have missions. It was just long days.
And it's crazy to get used to, your weekend being Friday and Saturday versus, you work Sunday to Thursday instead of Monday to Friday. So yeah, there were some differences there. I will tell you this. I did get to spend quite a bit of time at Cairo and in Tel Aviv on a few occasions. And I really grew to appreciate Mediterranean culture more than I've ever had before. Yeah, each side of that border is different, but both had their, I remember when I flew into, when I arrived, when I flew into, from Fort Bragg, we landed in Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. And you go on, you get on a bus and they take you to the Rafah border crossing. And I remember everything on the Israeli side being digital, like everything, processing passports, the whole 9 yards, right? And then you go out and they open the gate, you go through no man's land, and you get to the Egyptian side, and it is like you went back 100 years.
It is different.
Like, are still writing everybody's name in a book, right? Like, they're literally like writing your name in a book and doing, I remember this guard sitting here with an AK-47, and the barrel on this AK-47 is literally like this. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, how does that happen? And like when you went out on leave or whatever, you come back and literally they're like, one dude writes a note on a piece of paper, you take that, you give it to the dude, he opens the gate, you go through, that's still how we're operating. At that point.
It's funny you say that because I always tell people the story when I went on mid-tour leave when I was in the MFO. It's what you just said. You literally had to go to the barbershop, meet the local barber. He'd be like, "Hey, I need a ride to the airport." Like, I hope they're not doing this today because that'll be a huge OPSEC.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you wouldn't ask Muhammad over at the barbershop and his cousin would come and get you.
Exactly. My cousin's gonna pick you up. Where? Just meet him outside the gate. You're like, what? And this shit happens. So I remember taking my stuff. I'm walking out there and I'm like, damn, this is not safe. And there's his cousin with this beat down maroon.
Like,
yeah. Don't speak a lick of English. And I'm just like, oh man. And then you ride to the airport.
And we did that shit, man.
Yeah.
We just did that shit.
Shit was crazy, man. I look back now at all the shit I know where my situational awareness is at now. I'm like, they could have grabbed my ass. They'd never seen me again.
Yeah, been snatched up, gone.
Besides never going back to the MFO, what was your biggest takeaway?
It was really just more experience, man. It was just about the airframe. Learning the airframe, like, being a better soldier, being a better instructor, a better evaluator. I enjoyed the tour. I did. Like you said, it's a bit of Groundhog Day. There's not a whole lot changing in that day to day. I functioned as what we'll call the crash test dummy for a while. It was just the post phase crew member. I bust benches on a phase, and then when it came out, I'd go, do the test flights and all that stuff with the maintenance pilots. But did a lot more of that. A lot of track and balance and stuff that I hadn't really done a lot of before. So it was always been a fit.
Where'd you go after MFO?
Came back from my first rotation. Came back and I went to Fort Belvoir.
You still a specialist at this time?
Still a specialist, yes.
You were about what, 9 years in the Army already?
Yeah, about eight plus, yeah.
So what'd you do in Fort Belvoir?
Same thing. UH-1s.
UH-1?
We had one UH-1 company. Well, we had actually two companies that had UH-1s. And it was a Black Hawk company. I went to the VIP support company.
Okay.
For Belvoir. And so that was a good deal. You know what I mean? It was um, that was a good place to be. You know, I got the family moved down there. I was able to show up ahead of time, go ahead and pick out housing and all that. So when I moved them from Fort Drum, you know, they were still at Fort Drum. Moved them down straight into a townhouse on post on Fort Belvoir, and got to work again, straight into FISI role.
You get promoted during that time?
I got promoted a couple of months after I got there. I made sergeant. I had been fighting. I had actually should have been promoted about 8 months earlier.
Really?
But you know, there was confusion about. I had been listed as a 67 Victor at some point, and I think
What's
that
a
was when I
67
went
Victor?
to. That's an Alpha Charlie, always 58 Alpha Charlie again. And I think when I went to the cab, that's what they slotted me as, and somehow I wound up with that as a as one of my MOSs. And they were calling that my primary, and 6th of November as my secondary. Well, I made points as a Victor, but I was never a Victor. Or no, I made points as a November, but they were tracking me as a Victor, and so it took a while, but I got it fixed. You know, the good thing about being there in DC is you can kind of get to the people you need to get to fix things. Got that, you know. But I made E5 and E6 in the same year.
That's huge.
As soon as I came out of the E6 board, I called Branch and got a BNOC date 2 months later, and you know, I was rolling.
Now to make it E5 to E6 in the same year, that's a huge feat. That's something you don't hear that often.
Yeah, but you know, that community was so small. So as an E4, I was filling E6 positions. You know, I'd done those jobs. It was so it was really no big deal. You get promoted to the rank that I'm, you know, when I'm, you know, at that point I was largely seen as operating at that rank anyway. So, you know, and that worked out well.
What was your most memorable moment at Fort Belvoir and your biggest takeaway from that duty station?
September 11, 2001, of course, would be the.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you where you were September 11th. So let's hear that.
Man, I was still at Fort Belvoir, and I was at that point I was a platoon sergeant in general support, and man, I was having like one of the worst NCO days. That, you know, when you think about crappy days, I was having one of those before anything ever happened there. I was the RSO on a pistol range 40 hill that morning. My platoon leader was the OIC. And, you know, we laid out the op order. We had all that stuff ready. 4:30 a.m. we're meeting at the arms room, draw weapons, do all this, and take the weapons to the range. Now, you know, because we're National Capital Support, the Pentagon support, you know, we have quick reaction force crews, you know, and then we have, you know, Blackhawks have some standby crews, and, you know, all these things are always in place. All these contingencies were there. And so the plan is we're going to leave that, you know, SP for, you know, for the range was at 05 from the arms room, you know, so you start clearing. And so I'm there 4:30, get everything ready, got all my range safeties, most of which are warrant officers because we didn't have enough enlisted folks. Again, UH1s, not a lot of us around, right? So, and got no OIC, never shows up. So it comes time for SP. I'm like, get trucks, let's go. He'll catch up. Right? Like, I'm not waiting on this dude. I've called him like 5 times. He's not answering his phone. We're rolling. And get to 40 Hill. I'm trying to sign for the range. I can't sign for the range. I'm not the OIC. right? So I'm just waiting, dead in the water, right? Well, people, now firing orders are starting to show up, expecting that the range is ready. I don't even have the ground yet, right? My first sergeant is crawling all over me, right? Sergeant major, commanders, and I'm like, I don't know where he is. I can't do it. They won't finish me, right?
This is a battalion level range
Yeah.
for all right. So that's a lot of
battalion
people.
level range, yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, and so, and I'm just taking a beating in the parking lot. There's nothing I can do, right? Finally, some of the Black Hawks show up because they're supposed to be able to land, go straight on the firing line, fire, back in the aircraft, back Fort Belvoir. Again, contingency mission, right? And my lieutenant gets off one of those Black Hawks. And, so that I'm glad to see him. Took a lot of heat off me. Now all these people have somebody else to talk to and be mad at, right? So they go do their thing. We get the range, get everything opened up, start shooting. And a friend of mine calls. And I ignored his call first time. I mean, I'm busy, right? He calls again.
Jack, real quick, that lieutenant that got off the aircraft and signed for everything, that wasn't the original
He was the OIC.
Oh, he was the OIC?
Yeah, instead of meeting us and driving down, since he was already late, he figured he'd just wait and get on the Black Hawks.
Oh, and didn't call anybody?
No, I didn't tell him about it.
Oh, okay. That was nice of him.
Yeah. He didn't last very long in the Army after that. Anyway, that's a different story.
Different story.
But so, my friend calls, I ignore it, right? He calls back, and it's just not like him to call back, and he might leave me a message FU or something, but it's not a call back. So I answer the phone, and he had just gotten back from the Sinai, and he'd been stationed at the Jet Detachment at Andrews Air Force Base, but he wasn't current in Gulfstreams yet, so he was kind of unemployed, so to speak. So he's like, "Hey man, I'm on the bridge. I'm on the way to Fort Belvoir. If you need me, put me on the flight schedule." So, what I need you for? What are you talking about, dude? He's like, "Where are you?" I was like, "Dude, I'm on a pistol. I'm running at pistol range at AP Hill." He's like, "Dude, both towers of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon have been hit by airplanes. You need to leave. What are you doing?" It's first I'd heard.
Damn.
Not like I got media. I don't have cell phones with me. At that time, we weren't smartphones. We had cell phones.
Yeah, we just had cell phones. Yep.
And so he tells me this. He's like, "Dude, I'm looking at smoke rolling out of the Pentagon. That's what we're for." I'm like, "I'll call you back." And I hang up. I go to this lieutenant. Same lieutenant. "Sir, Pentagon's been hit by an airplane. Twin Tower, the World Trade Center towers have been hit by her. We need to leave now. We need to shut it down." Now, keep in mind, we still got our QRF crews are still at the airfield, but those have to be reconstituted within 1 hour. Per the contingency hours. We're at least an hour away. We don't have crews back there to reconstitute if we don't go now. And he's like, so I tell him this is what's happening. And he says, "Well, I don't see any reason to stop training." And I had no idea what to do. Right? Like, I knew what I'd been told. And I knew this is very serious. So I saw the S3, the major. So I just kind of walked around the lieutenant. "Sir, this has happened. I think we need to go." And right about the time that I finished this, his phone rang. He answers his phone. He takes his phone away and says, "Shut it down, go." We left. At that point, by now, kind of word's kind of getting out. The guys, the civilians that run the tower are. I run up the stairs. I'm like, hey guys, we gotta go. They're like, yeah, we'll take care of everything. You just leave. Just pack your shit and leave. So that's what we do. You know, it's running 95 miles an hour back up I-95 to get back to Fort Belvoir to Davidson Army Airfield. And kind of a blur after that, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just that was a lot.
So did you guys go help the Pentagon?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what we were for. We moved, you know, there are several organizations on Fort Belvoir that are, you know, their existence at that time was for that type of mission, for, you know, emergencies in the national capital. So we're moving rescue teams, engineers, law enforcement, and anybody that needs movement, because, you know, the FAA has shut it down, right? Like, you got to ask, you know, permission's got to come from on high to break ground, just to get off the ground, right? So very few organizations actually put an aircraft in the air. The DC National Guard had a medevac detachment right there. Those guys were running. We were running pretty steady in and out. One of the hardest things about that operation at the Pentagon was that there was an air traffic control tower there that my battalion actually was responsible for and ran and manned. And the plane hit at the air traffic control tower.
Damn.
So having, you know, we got to get somebody on the ground to control traffic in and out, right? That is, you know, it became a large operation very, very quickly. Luckily, a lot of pieces were put in place prior. You know, of course, I mean, that's what we do. But it was I mean, it was, everything took an extra step. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember we had a Black Hawk crew coming in, and back then, you know, I mean, it was fairly normal. Turn your transponder off short final, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need that thing for, right?
Yeah. Can't be telling people our secrets.
Well,
I get it.
You know, back in the day, you
Yeah.
had to turn that joker off long final, right? I mean, it is, you know. And I remember an F-15 or an F-16 barreling down on this Black Hawk because he turned his transponder off too soon. And now all they see is an aircraft airborne with no transponder. And you know what I'm saying? They literally followed this dude. Like, he hit the runway and they did a low pass dead over him across the runway, you know? Like, so yeah, you had to be on your P's and Q's, you know, as far as how you operate.
Damn. Thank you for sharing that, bro. That was, and that's, once again, bro, this is the reason I want to do that, because I never even knew that about you, and I never knew that you were actually there moving people during that one of the most pivotal times in our country, and you were a part of that. And that shit is, I tell people, man, when you get to that level of, like, when stuff like that goes on, I don't know what it is about us people in the military, but our level of wanting to get shit done and help is just, it's unreal. Like, there's nothing, come hell or high water, we're gonna make this shit happen. Like, you either support us while we make it happen, or we're just gonna make the shit happen. And that's you almost got me emotional over here.
It was weeks, man, weeks. I didn't see my house. I'd left my house early that morning at 4:00 that morning. I didn't see it again until, I don't know, maybe 48 hours later.
Damn.
And it's just, you know, as a platoon sergeant, I'm kind of trying to fly missions, you know, you always want to be out there, you know, as soldiers, but you're also kind of managing the maintenance.
Yeah.
You know, ensuring the long-term success, you know, with, you know, fly on aircraft into service at once, or, you know, so you're managing maintenance and personnel, and it was, you know, it's this big juggling act. And when it happens that suddenly, it's pretty shocking. It's just, and then, like I said, for weeks on end, it's, flying. I don't even know how many missions we flew to Dover. Evidence boxes, and taking mortuary affairs, and as they comb through the rubble and work on this stuff, and that was difficult stuff, man. Chinooks from Fort Campbell, and I don't remember if it was varsity or pachyderms, but definitely some Chinooks showed up for Fort Campbell about 3 days later, 2 or 3 days later. And those guys took a huge load off. Just the capabilities that CH-47 are incredible. So
they are definitely a battlefield multiplier, man.
They're a game changer, man.
Yeah, bro. I think that's a true testament of what, once again, this is why Heroes Have Wings. I created this because I need the world to understand the level of commitment and the capabilities and the sacrifice that these young aviators, these crew chiefs, medics, everybody, maintenance, this whole body inside of the Army that a lot of people they don't acknowledge us because they just don't know. But the level of sacrifice that I see from you guys time and time again, and for you to be a part of, to actually be there in DC during 9/11 and see like the outcome of terror to our country is very, it's humbling to know that you're a part of that, and you responded, you and everybody else responded the way that you guys did, because ultimately this is what the Army and the military is about. When people try to catch us off guard, we're showing up. And when we do show up, just be ready for what's going to happen, because we're going to bring it to you at every level.
Yeah. You might land a blow. You might land the first sucker punch.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes after that.
Yeah, you may win the battle, but come on.
you might land a shot, but
yeah.
I don't know if you remember Danny Stevens.
Oh, definitely.
Danny, loved Danny. Danny, actually, my first turn to Sinai, I was his FI in his first flight medic son, but Danny was working at the aid station in the Pentagon on September 11th.
Yep.
And that, as close as I was to that, I struggle to imagine what that must have been like from his perspective. So when that's, I carried around a lot of shit for a lot of years. September 11th. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine what some other folks.
Yeah, and shout out to Danny. He passed away. Rest in peace. I love him dearly. I actually went to his funeral.
Oh, it was good. I'm glad you made it. Danny was a good man. He really was. I'm sorry, bro. I know.
All right, sorry about that.
No, I get it, man. I do. I get it.
Well, like I was saying, shout out to Danny. Love him dearly. He was in a medevac with me. Yeah, I found out his story too, man. And that dude, there's not even enough I could say about the level of character this dude was, man. You want to talk about an American hero?
Dude.
God.
To his very core. There was nothing else.
That dude was a badass dude, man.
Yeah, he was, man.
And like I said, I went to his funeral. He passed away, motorcycle accident.
That's who Danny was, though.
Yeah, I got to meet his sons, his family. Very, very good friend of mine, man. I love that dude. Just because who he was. 9/11, all those deployments.
You couldn't not love that dude.
That dude.
If you knew that dude.
And he always kept his shit together. No matter
Didn't
how
matter
much,
how bad it was.
yeah, no matter how much pain I knew that man was dealing with, he always kept his shit together, and he was a true professional. Showed up,
Yes.
showed up. What was your biggest takeaway from besides you witnessing true acts of heroism and the level of commitment from other military members? What was your biggest takeaway from being in Fort Belvoir during that time?
I really took a lot of leadership experience out of that organization. At least I felt like I did. In that, I took over a platoon sergeant job as my first assignment as new series. E7 position, and man, it was drinking from water hose. It was the learning curve is steep. Like I said, I've done a lot of the positions, done a lot of the job, but when you're actually the guy in charge,
Yeah, it changes.
It changes a lot.
That shit changes a lot.
So my biggest takeaway from there was just what I gained the most from it. It's just a lot of leadership experience and time. That meant it was very important, very important assignment for me. And I know a whole lot of people that was just that was taking a break. You take a break from operational assignments, go to Fort Belvoir for a couple of years, chill out, maybe leave. And for me, it wound up being pretty steep learning curve. There's not a lot of relaxing there for me.
Yeah. How did you end up back at the MFO?
Again, still UH1s. Not a lot of places to go, man.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
I mean, that was it. So, again, I go back to Sinai and, Sinai 2.0. Do it all again. Still the SI, still the, just doing that job.
Yeah. How long were you there? That second time?
Second time was a year also.
What years were you there?
That was
03, 04?
No, 02, 03.
02, 03. You leave the Sinai. Same thing from the last time. Mm-hmm. Is that when at what point did you get the Black Hawk transition? 15
when
Tango?
I left the Sinai the second time.
And where'd they send you to do that?
Fort Eustis, Virginia.
How was that experience? Showing up you were an E6 at the time, right?
It was, yeah. But they had a reclass. They had a reclassification course rather than just a full, AIT course. So it was actually a short course. It was only like 3 weeks.
Oh, really?
I mean, the basis of aircraft mechanics are the basis. Basically you're learning components and some of the more basic differences of the two. I mean, but let's face it, no matter what aircraft you're working on or what you're doing, you're not going to stay in training long enough to learn how to do that, right? Like, most of that's coming on the job, man. I mean, let's face it, you're going to learn the basic stuff. You're going to go out there, you're going to start pinning wrenches and read books, man. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I wasn't really concerned with how long the course was or any of that, but I was supposed to do the Black Hawk transition en route to the 3rd Infantry Division.
That's down in Fort Stewart, right?
Not at Fort Stewart. That's where I was supposed to head. And as luck would have it, we invaded Iraq. And so I get a call from the branch manager, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're supposed to go to 3rd ID. Them cats are halfway to Baghdad, bro. Like, you ain't going to catch up." Right?
Correct. You're right.
Yeah. And they changed my orders to Fort Eustis. So I'm going to go through the Black Hawk course, transition course. Then I'm going to start teaching privates how to work on Black Hawks. It's like that sense of me, right? But okay, whatever, man. I'm here, right? So
they took you. They put you through the course. Then they want to make you an instructor.
That's what was fitting to happen. Yeah, that was the other grand plan. And,
what in the world are we doing?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah,
But luckily I was in the reclass company, because you got all your AIT companies. And then there's a reclassification company that's separate for soldiers reclassing from other MOSs into aviation. And they were short. I'm sorry. My first sergeant was like, "Hey man, look, when you come to sign in, like, don't go to post, don't go anywhere, just come to me." Okay. Cool. Whatever. So I graduate the course, I take my week or whatever, and actually I think I took like 3 weeks leave or something because I found a place to live, got my family moved from Fort Belvoir, an hour and a half south to Fort Eustis. And I go to sign in, I go see First Sergeant, and he takes me over to the PSB, the Personnel Support Battalion. They had orders for me to go to the reclass company as platoon sergeant. And so I kind of bypassed the whole schoolhouse thing, right? Which was cool. I was good because I would rather have leadership time than instructor time. Not that instructor time is bad, but it's not leadership time, right? I mean, it's not leading soldiers. So, so I was like, cool. So I just started working, right? And I kind of thought I thought everything was kosher, everything was cool, right? Until I don't know, about 2 months later, I was also the training NCO. So every week I come in at 4:30 in the morning, do height weight tape on all the folks coming in, the whole nine, right? I had 2 Apache guys come in doing a longboat transition, both busted height weight tape. So I'm like, okay, look guys, be back here at 9 a.m. We're going to redo it. Another chance here to start your course. They both show up, both bust again, right? And so I'm like, crap, So, the standard is you're going back to the house, right? Like I can't, you can't go to school.
Correct. Let me add to that, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And just so everybody knows, when you show up to a school, you do have, at a minimum, this is basic soldiering stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to make sure you maintain a certain height. Well, your height's going to stay the same, but your weight has to be within standard.
Body composition. It's really about body composition.
Correct. And if it's not, they're sending your ass back to the house.
So, and their branch managers is calling me and just cussing me bad. They don't even have to do that for this course. And I'm like, my commander's memorandum says they do, right? I mean, this is what it is. So the brigade sergeant major calls me. He's like, hey, I want you and those 2 body fat failures in my office at 1700. Brothers on me, do my thing, right? I'm like, man, I'm about to get chewed up trying to do,
do the right thing,
right? So I remember, we go up there. I tell them stand right here, which is kind of dumb. I mean, at that point, I'm still a staff sergeant, right? These cats are both staff sergeants, but I'm giving them, I knock on the door and tells them to come in. I'm like, somebody staff sergeant, things reporting his order, he looks at me dead in the face, and the first thing he said is, "You're the son of a bitch that bypassed the PSB and went straight to that job, and as a platoon sergeant job instead of going to the schoolhouse." Man, I'm screwed. What can I say? I tell my Roger Sergeant, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm hiding, right? So he's like, bring those other 2 in here. And this whole conversation was just like this. Sergeant, you're fat. You're fat too. You go into the house. Any questions? Get out. So I'm like,
that's a big deal. When you got staff sergeants showing up and they're not fit for duty, essentially, because they're overweight.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a huge deal in the Army, because you're supposed to be leading by example, right?
Right. That's problematic.
That is very problematic.
So, but then and after that, he's like, after those 2 are gone, he's like, well, I need good people over there as platoon sergeants too. So you just keep doing what you do. So that was all I ever heard of it, right? Like, I thought I was done, dude. I thought, oh, man, this guy's going to throw me down at the schoolhouse. I'm done, you know, but I don't know, it worked out. So, but that job became, it was a great job. You know, on paper, it was actually a drill sergeant position. It was supposed to be filled by a drill sergeant. But they didn't, you know, use drill sergeants. They kept them over in the IT side and just filled those with MCOs as they could find them. So, but I did that for a couple of years. But that, you know, at that point, I'm trying to get itchy because everybody else wanted combat, man.
Yeah.
Everybody else wanted combat. And, you know, I made sergeant first class. But I just wasn't making any, I don't know, I didn't feel like I was progressing, you know.
Where'd you go after that?
Drill sergeant school.
Went to drill sergeant school. What was your biggest takeaway from that whole experience?
Or
being at that last duty station before drill sergeant school?
Yeah, at Fort Eustis was, I gained a lot of understanding of the training process in TRADOC. You know, as far as the training requirements, training, the methods that, I guess, training tracking methods. Yeah, you know, like I said, working in a training as a training NCO and a platoon sergeant, it was kind of, you know, I was doing dual duty, but I was doing a lot as far as like processing graduation paperwork and diplomas and those kinds of things, and working, you know, what constituted completion versus attendance. What, you know, I gained a lot of the TRADOC knowledge about TRADOC in general, training and doctrine command in general, through that. So
TRADOC is where you train all the soldiers. You got TRADOC, FORSCOM, you got other parts, but TRADOC is where you pretty much do all the school stuff. So how did you become a drill sergeant? I need to know that story.
Man, honestly, I was trying to get out of Fort Eustis because I'd done that. You know what I mean? It's like I've been there a couple of years. I mean, it's been fine. It's been great. But like, you know, it's time to go. Like, you know, everybody else is going to combat. Everybody else is getting those deployments. And it's not that I'm like trying to, you know, I mean, nobody wants to go, you know, but at the same time, it's like, I want to do my part. You know what I mean? Like, I know dudes doing 2-3 deployments and I haven't done any. That's bullshit, you know? And so I was trying to get out of Fort Eustis in general, you know, to an operational unit anywhere in the Army. But I called my branch manager and I'm like, dude, you know, got to do something here. And he goes, man, right now I'm so understaffed at Fort Eustis that I can't possibly move somebody out, regardless of, you know, how long they've been there or whatever. I'm like, it's got to be something. And another thing that I was terribly paranoid about, was recruiting duty. Recruiting was going hard back then. And like, those cats didn't care if you lived or died, as long as you made numbers, right? Like, seriously, whatever. And I saw guys, man, I had a guy come through, he did a Kiowa transition. So our first class, come out of recruiting, was doing can't remember, the Yankee 5 transition, Kiowas. And he's supposed to be en route to Korea. He's already shipped his household goods. He's TDY en route to Korea, right? 2 days before he graduated, man, they're like, no, you're going back to recruit. Snatched him up. They're like, don't worry, your stuff will come back. Sent him back to his old battalion, man, recruiting like they're just like running dudes with recruiting. And I was terribly paranoid they were going to grab me because I hadn't had a special assignment yet, necessarily, right?
That was one of the things NCOs had to worry about, that recruiting your drill sergeant. And during that time, this was, what year was this going on?
This would have been 04, I guess, 04, 05.
Yeah, 04, 05. We just started to draw. We got 2 war fronts going on, so we needed bodies. So them recruiters are just as important. I want everybody to know the recruiters recruiters are the salespeople. If they're not bringing bodies in, we have no army. So recruiting was a number one priority. Drill sergeant, another one. You got to have people pulling them in. You need somebody to train these civilians to become soldiers. So the army had high priority on those guys. Yeah. And if you were good at being a recruiter, you weren't going anywhere. You better.
Well, that dude must have been a superstar because they snatched him back, boy. And so I'm on the phone with this, and he's like, I can't move anybody out. I'm like, what about drill sergeant? Like, if I do a drill sergeant packet, what are the odds, right? And he goes, man, if you're willing to go drill sergeant, he goes, I got to submit names for 3 DA selects by the end of the week. They're looking for E5s and E6s, but I'll put your name in the hat.
You don't even have to do the paperwork. I'll just submit your name.
I didn't have to do the packet, right? I'm like, bet. And sure enough, man, following Monday, get an email. Been selected for drill sergeant duty, right? And so that's how I wound up there. I was trying to get out of where I was, and if I couldn't get to an operational unit, I knew I had to get. I wanted to get to drill sergeant versus recruiting, because if I couldn't get operational real quick, one of those two was going to get me. Probably recruiting. But I had my NCOERs were supportive of a career of assignment as a drill sergeant. Everything was in line for that, so it worked out. And that's how I wound up going to drill sergeant.
Nice. How was it being a drill sergeant? Where were you a drill sergeant at as well?
I was a drill sergeant at Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay.
Basic combat training. Tough job.
Very tough job.
Probably the toughest job I've been in the Army.
Drill sergeants, these guys are the first ones there. We're talking about 3, 4 o'clock. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have the experience, but 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, they don't go home until maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So just because you're on you're in TRADOC, you're definitely not home. You are not home. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong again, Jack, I know the divorce rate for a lot of drill sergeants is high, because a lot of drill sergeants, you are gone. You might as well be on a deployment being a drill sergeant. And now imagine this 2 to 3 year stint. You're just not home for that amount of time. And that takes a lot on a family.
Yeah. I mean, the time, literally my kid's asleep when I left. She was, asleep when I got home most nights.
Yeah.
It's just, there's not family time. There's not, everything is devoted to soldiers. Everything is devoted to training. So when you start to put that together, and that was tough life. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I hated it at the time. Here's the way it worked out every cycle. I hated being a drill sergeant for the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
What'd you hate about it?
Just the hours. I live my life so angry, and it just, you just start to exist in that anger,
Yeah. When I was a SEER instructor, we had to get a psych eval every year just to make sure that we don't fall into that role permanently. And, now we're not home, yelling at our wives and all this stuff. I'm surprised they didn't do that for you drill sergeants, because they do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, we had to do a psychological evaluation to before drill sergeant school. You had to get psychological evaluation, and then around your 1 year mark, you have to do a mandatory stand down, which is a week long, and it has to be during the cycle, so it has to take you literally out of the training cycle, and you have to do you do several mental health appointments and physical health appointments. You mandatory things, but they just kind of check you out to make sure you're staying like you're supposed to be, because like you said, it's easy to get caught in that, and trying to separate that out, man. When you're at work, when you're not, you can't be that person at home, and so you gotta, it's tough to turn it on and off, and after a while, that's really what it becomes. You're playing a role. You flip the switch, you become that person. You flip the switch the other way, and you're not that person anymore. And, you know, so you just learn to be that way.
And there have been studies that show the damaging effect, like how deep people get into these roles. This is why everybody has to be monitored, and you have to take a step back because, man, you'll find yourself at home having your 2-year-old doing push-ups or doing something crazy. You know, it's just you got to get those balances and checks. And I shout out to the Army for making sure they do that.
And you know, the attrition rate for drill sergeants is rather high. As far as people that don't make it off the trail, don't make it out of that assignment with the badge and hat. You know what I mean? Like it can be, it's tough. You know, you're spending all your time with these privates, right? And you know, like I said, the end of every cycle will be some of the proudest times I ever had in the Army. When I saw soldiers, you know, people. You know, I used to tell them on day one, you know, look, private, my job is to build a soldier. And right now there's a civilian standing on the foundation that I have to build. So I have to destroy that civilian first. And that's just the way this is going to go. Right? And when you see what you built at home, man, there's nothing to make you proud. Right? I mean, when you think back on what those people were when they showed up and the soldiers that they are when they're leaving. I mean, if you did it right, man, no better feeling. They didn't know you did. Right. You're angry every other day. You know, it's like you get one day.
How many people you think you put through a drill sergeant school? If you had to take a shot at it, a number guess.
How many people did I train as a drill sergeant?
Or help train as a senior drill?
According to some of my old NCOERs, I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of about 1,400 a year for 2 years.
Damn, for 2 years? So essentially 2,800 soldiers. You created 2,800 soldiers.
Well, I contributed.
Contribute.
You know, when you look at, you know, I mean, my average platoon, I was a senior drill sergeant my whole time. So, you know, I had a platoon of my own, at least one drill sergeant with me, usually one, sometimes two. And I would have usually about 60 to 65 soldiers per cycle. And I did 9.5 cycles. You know, just in my direct control would be, you know, whatever that come out to.
Damn, that's impressive, man. That right there is a huge accolade to make that many war fighters. That's huge. That's something to be very, very proud of, Jack.
Yeah. Thank you.
Continue to make me proud over here, brother. Love it, man. Drill sergeant school, biggest takeaway.
I really learned to be a trainer. You know, I'd been in FI. I'd done a lot of instructing. But that was a different level of training, education, communication, truly learn to communicate with people. Granted, sometimes not always in the way they wanted you to, right? But like a lot of it was, you know, you learn about people really quickly in that job because you know that, you know, immediately, like within a week, you know, okay, I'm not going to make any progress yelling at that kid. I got to talk to that kid. This kid, I'm not going to make any progress talking to unless there's like threat of me being on top of them all day. They're not, you know what I'm saying? You know, you know, this one's not going to respond well to this type of environment. So I have to foster this environment when I deal with that individual specifically. So, you know, you just learn to read people and figure out how they learn and adjust what you're doing to get them where they need to be, right? You know, when you see this kid struggling, you know that's okay, the remedial training is going to have to look like this. So, and you just kind of gain a feel for it and start changing how you operate something, and you really start to make progress there.
I think that makes you such a better leader, how to work, you know, handle people differently, different personalities. And I learned that when I was opening my business and being a gym owner. Like, the different levels of personalities is, man, that makes you so much better as a leader, that overall it makes you a better person. So I could only imagine training 2,800 or having a footprint on 2,800 soldiers' lives with skills that gave you, man. That's huge. So after drill sergeant school, where do you go next?
Well, from drill sergeant school was 101st, Alpha Company 611 Warlords.
How'd you feel that you're going, you've had this first off, you're a sergeant first class. How many years you been in the Army?
At that point, 17.
17 years. Yeah. Now you're going to the 101st Airborne Division.
Well, I was stoked. But before they would let me leave Fort Jackson, it's funny because I had an infantry first sergeant, former drill sergeant, awesome dude, and this will be important in a minute, right? Like, he calls me in his office, like, as I'm taking off the hat, like I'm getting ready to go. I got my orders, and he calls me in the office and he says, "Look, man, your orders have been delayed by 30 days." So, what? Why? He's like, "Look, I was not as intense as you when I left the drill sergeant trail and went back to the infantry, and they didn't know how to handle me in the infantry. It's like, you're more intense than me when you're going to aviation. So we're gonna hold you here for a month, and I want you to focus. I want you to decompress, right?" And I was like, I was pissed. I mean, this is bullshit. I mean, it was what was best. Looking back now, at the time I didn't appreciate it much, but I was running pretty hot at that point. So yeah, they actually delayed my leaving by a month. And all they would let me do for that month, like, if they were doing group run days, I would come in and run bulk runner group, and like I could help with like logistics. That like, no, you don't deal with privates. Like you're decompressing. That's not what you do. So they literally like just shut me down for a month.
It's crazy. I remember when I first met you, you still had that drill sergeant appeal about you too, and they still held you for 30 days. So where do you go on 101st?
I went to Alpha Company 6 Battalion, Warlords, and that, which definitely by far the most fortunate thing that could happen to me, I think, at that point. So tough unit for me to kind of get in it, like, it was a very close organization, very tight-knit group. A tight-knit group that had traveled, they'd trained together for a long time, deployed together several times, right? So there weren't a lot of, they were a very set organization, right?
What month did you get there?
I got there in October, I think.
It was October 2000.
It would have been October 2007. I think we deployed January 2008.
Correct.
So yeah, it was like October 2007, the end of October. So it's like 2 months before, effectively 2 months before deployment. And, right off the bat, I displaced a platoon sergeant, an E6 that was filling it, that was in a sergeant first class position. So my mentality is completely different than everyone else's, right? Like, my thought processes are completely different than everyone else's in this organization that's very, very close, right? So, first 3-4 months, like, I was excited, to be there, right? But I got a lot of crew deployment stuff to do that everybody else has already done that I haven't, I got to catch up on, so I didn't really even get to spend a lot of time with the organization till we were deployed, right? Like, so that part was pretty tough. It was tough in the beginning, definitely.
I think it's tough, even for me. When I showed up to Alpha Company, this was, let me see, I think it was August 2006. I showed up September 2006. I showed up. They just literally got back from a deployment, so I felt the same way you felt. You know, I'm walking into this unit. Everybody has their close relationships. I'm coming from the MFO, Sinai. You know, I'm still a young aviator, and you know, I completely understand where you're coming from. It was tough to try to blend in and find your spot and where you fit in.
And I wasn't used to blending in with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I was used to bending people the way I wanted.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So, I had to like recalibrate everything, or try to. It's a lot easier to say this is what I have to do than to go do that thing, right? Like, so my internal struggles for the first 6 months, first of all, I'm in Blackhawks. Never actually operated in Blackhawks, right? I went to the transition, but then after that, it was all trade octane. So for all intents and purposes, brand new airframe to me, right? I haven't deployed. I've got a completely different mentality. So, I was pretty far behind the 8 ball. In a lot of ways.
Let me ask Jack, this is a good moment to show the audience that each individual, we got to deal like with the things that the Army's placing on us. Going to combat, about to be away from home. We just left something that we've been doing the last few years. Then we all have our internal battles that we have to battle with, right? How do I fit into this organization? I haven't been deployed yet. Everybody else been deployed. There's a lot of things. Am I going to be too much? How am I going to work? So there's a lot of things. And mind you, a lot of us are still young at this time. We're still young. We're still becoming adults, and we're adults, but our minds are maturing, very rapidly. We're trying to figure all this stuff out. We're trying to figure out who we are. Where do we fit into this big ass world and puzzle, and all this crazy things going on?
And as soon as you figure it out, bro, you go somewhere else and you got to figure it out again.
Exactly. Oh man, that's so true. So we get deployed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I will say one thing. I vividly remember you showing up, and I did gravitate towards you. I see you. You were a little stern. You had that not that shell, but you could tell that you were a drill sergeant. Like you were locked tight. And I just remember that you had good energy about you. And I think a lot of people, I don't think you had any issues with leading and influencing. I think one thing I do remember about you, correct me if I'm wrong, you were always honest about where you were at from a technical standpoint with the aircraft. You never faked the funk with anybody about, I know this, I know that. I vividly remember you always in a student role, trying to learn from as many people and being very, very humbled about that and just receptive to it.
I learned a lot from great specialists. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is, right? And so the technical stuff, like I said, that was just, like crewing helicopters, it didn't matter. Blackhawks, Hueys, whatever, crewing's crewing. Once I got in the airframe, aerial progression, too easy, right? That part, but definitely, one of my biggest regrets is never catching up technically on Blackhawks. Like I was in Hueys. In Hueys, I was, when people had questions, they came to me. You know what I mean? I was never technically savvy. And largely because by the time I started working on them, I was doing more management, leadership than bending wrenches. And if you don't build that knowledge from the bottom all the way up, it's got gaps, right?
Correct. Yep.
And so I had gaps all through, and I definitely regret not having become more technically savvy.
Yeah. You're also a victim of your circumstances, right? The army at a point, they're gonna, and I'm not advocating victim mentality at all, but the army at some point will mandate that you have to do something different outside of your job. It's just it is what it is. And this is one of the reasons I did become a warrant officer. But even in the warrant officer world, right?
You still got to go do something else.
You still got to do something else. You become a pilot, then you got to go track. I mean, you're getting to a point. There's always something different you have to do, but you've adjusted well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't feel like I was adjusting. I'll put it that way. I mean, there were definitely struggles. Jamie Houch, as a first time, a great mentor. Had it not, he was definitely able to keep me with the right moving forward, in the right direction. So once I got my feet on the ground, we got to Afghanistan. We got to, we got operating. I started flying with some crews, learning a little bit more of the airframe, adjusting my mentality to what we were. It smoothed out quite a bit, I think, toward the end of that, middle into that.
Yeah. What was your most memorable moment 2008 deployment?
Every mission into the Cornwall under night vision goggles is a memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Right. So, I mean, yeah. But I remember, I think probably, it's strange because I think about like my first combat mission in the UH-60, right? I don't remember anything special. It's just you do what you do. I used the preparation process as like my coping mechanism, right? Like going through the steps, the pre-mission steps is how I prepared myself mentally as much as physically, right? Yes. So I don't know. I just kind of use that as perspective, and I learned to use processes as preparation and perspective, not just in, I'm preparing for the mission by putting this here. That physical act is one thing, but using those actions to prepare yourself psychologically was very beneficial for me. By the time it came to pull pitch and go outside the wire, your head's set where it's got to be if you use the preparation process.
So, now, what was your biggest takeaway from that deployment? Because this is your first combat deployment. You had your experience with 9/11, right? Mm-hmm. What was your biggest takeaway from that deployment?
I think measured response. You know what I mean? It was, and I think when I say that is what I'm driving at. It's a little bit hard to explain, I think, but responding, how do you respond to each situation needs to be measured and calculated. And
correct.
That definitely was apparent to me more so in that deployment than after that deployment. Well, that's one of the biggest things I pulled out of that deployment was measured response. And there's no need to be mad about this situation. Let's push through and fix this situation. Yeah. Sometimes, okay, yeah, hey man, we got to be mad now, but it's just, I don't know, I think I tempered myself a lot more.
Yeah, that's something I've learned too throughout my military career. Not everything's an emergency. Not everything, you hit it on the head, and I'm going to use that measured response. I mean, not everything is a big deal, right? And I think a lot of people live life like that every day. Everything is a big deal. Everything is really not a big deal. Like, relax a little bit.
It took me a long time to even figure that out. You know, way longer than it should have. Like, seriously.
Jack, it took me a long time to figure that out too. I mean, even after flying helicopters and, experiencing the things we've experienced, I mean, I just probably in the last 2 or 3 years, I really started figuring this out. Like, man, Jay, maybe that's not a big deal. All right. So, but it happens with experiences and maturing and getting older. So we don't know what we don't know, right?
Sometimes you make a conscious decision to project anger as a tool, right?
Yep.
If you're expressing anger as an emotion, man, that's going to lead you down a bad road, right? Like, okay, fine. Maybe I need to project this to drive this point home. When you're projecting a certain emotion thoughtfully for a purpose, that's different than simply having an emotional reaction.
Yeah, that's deep, man. And that's something, I've been thinking about lately too. I was an angry individual when I was in the Army. I don't know why. I do know why now that I look back and I'm older now and I can understand it. But you said it just there, like the energy, and I'm realizing this the last few years too, the energy we put out there and the reasons why I was angry. And man, this shit is crazy how we look back on it. And we're just like, but that's a part of growing up, looking back and saying, man, maybe I could have done this better. One of the biggest things I want everybody to understand that it's never too late to change. No matter what anybody thinks about you or what you may think about your old self, give yourself that grace to change and become that better person that you aspire to become. That's what's the most important thing about it. How many years were you after that 2008 deployment? How many years were you been in the Army?
At that point, I was coming up on 18, 19.
So you're getting close to like, man, I'm wanting to hang this shit up.
Oh yeah, man. I'm like looking at it, right? Like it's a couple more years, and then I made the E8 list, and I decided to stick around.
Nice. Now, how was everything at home? Good. The wife was still good. Your daughter's growing up. Your wife taking care of the house and everything.
Yeah. Everything was going pretty well. In 2010, my wife suffered a head injury at work, and so she's gone through quite the combination of PTSD, CTE. There's been TBI. So she was in a Intrepid Spirit TBI clinic at Fort Campbell for a while. Being seen there as an outpatient, and but all in all, yeah, man. I mean, things are still going pretty well.
Yeah, that's great, man. That is good.
My daughter definitely stepped up when my wife got hurt, and she was freshman in high school, I think, just sophomore, and so
that shows how good you guys are raising your daughter, that she stepped in, at that young age, and she wanted to help out and be a part of the team instead of being selfish. But that's huge, man. That says a lot about you and your wife and how good parents you guys are. When you got back from 2008, how did you feel? And how did you feel? Did you feel like, because one thing I want to talk about is how people felt when they came back from a deployment. How did you feel? Were you okay? Were you like, man, that was okay, but I'm still all right? Or
I felt like I was all right. We always feel like we're all right. Just ask us, we'll always tell you we're all right, right? I mean, it's not until, and I have to, like, I never been one to carry a lot of stuff around, right? Like, you put it in perspective as what it is, how it happened, what happened. Okay, well, we're not gonna let it happen again, and we cut it loose, right? And because we make mistakes or we do this, things happen in our lives, and we I've always been one that advocated, hey, move on, right? Just because that happened in your life doesn't mean it's over, right? You still got to live, and you got to find a way to get past it. And you got, look it in the face, understand what it is, and move on to the next thing. If it was bad, don't let it happen again. If it was good, try to make it happen again, right? And when I came back from that first deployment, I actually felt good, outside of the hero missions and I was very fortunate, man. Really, I was very fortunate in what I had to deal with, as compared to what a lot of soldiers deal with. So I felt pretty good. I had my, my internal conflicts, of course, and again, you kind of force yourself to sit down, confront what the problem is, right, and understand it and move on. Sometimes it's better than others. September's still a hard month for me.
Oh yeah, I only could imagine, man. There's one thing I always tell everybody: I don't think we'll ever be healed. We learn how to function with everyday life with our scars, man. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like, man, when you see a veteran, like a combat veteran, I mean, like, give the dude a hug, or the woman, right? Because we're holding a lot. We're holding a lot inside that we're just gonna hold it to the day we die. And that's just how we're bred. I can't explain it, man. But we hold a lot of things in, and we just figure out how to navigate through life with all the baggage that we have. So right. You have 2 more deployments coming up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That next deployment was the 2010 deployment?
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, and that was with the warlords as well.
Okay, if you could talk about that that deployment for the audience.
Well, I'd left Alpha Company. I went to Delta for a brief stint, and I made the EA list. And Jamie Houchik and I swapped out. He went from Alpha to Delta, and I went from Delta to Alpha. And so I had the distinct privilege of being a Warlord 7 in that 2010 deployment to Kandahar. With
so you were a first sergeant at the time.
Yeah, Ryan Travis, the commander, great dude. So had some really good platoon leaders, platoon sergeants. All in all, an exceptional deployment. I thought we did very well. There was, when we lost Josh Powell, that hurt. That was rough. Definitely something I carry around. I don't think, you can look at those situations and as a leader, you're going to question things, right? Could I have done something different? And at a point, it's just that's what the job is, right? I mean, we all hang our ass out there is what we do, but I definitely struggled for a while with, asking myself questions that didn't have answers, and so, I was still crewing helicopters some at that point. I liked the fact that I could, put the office stuff down and get in the aircraft and, go do something, get out and do the mission and enjoy that as much as you can. You catch a lot of crap at that point. It's like, you can show me how you do it non-top, you know? Like,
Yeah.
that was good times, man. I love that stuff.
Yeah. 2010 was when Josh passed away. Was that your most memorable moment, or do you have another one? Because that is a significant. A lot of the
that
people
definitely stands out, you know, from that deployment. I mean, but there were, you know, man, there were so many great things in that deployment too. But it's just like, it's crazy because the good things can get overshadowed by the loss real easy, man. You know, and but man, I had, you know, Travis Eicher and Glenda Carter's platoon sergeants. Awesome. You know, I mean, like I said, there was so many great things in that deployment. You know, things I could, you know, young leaders doing great things. You know, and you always love to see that. You know, when you see young folks, or you know, young E5s or E6, they're stepping up and taking roles that 2 years ago they never would have, you know, been able to do, or wanted to try. And so, though, the only other incident that I remember most vividly from that deployment was a young man from 5th Battalion, Staff Sergeant 15 Tango. He came to me. He said, you know, hey, First Sergeant, you got a minute? You know what? Absolutely. You know what? He wanted to talk to. He wanted some career advice. And, you know, his first sergeant was a shop guy, a back shop guy, and so he wanted career advice. He wanted to talk to a tango. I'm like, hey man, absolutely. You know, so we sit down and, you know, and I'm asking him, what do you want to do? And he's got these plans, you know, what, you know, and he's like, I want to be a first sergeant. I'm like, damn right, you know what I mean? Like, that's the way to be, right? And and we talked for like a half an hour. You know, give him the same advice I would give any other, right? You know, hey, do the hard jobs, right? Don't sit in a TI shop doing technical work. Yeah, you need the technical knowledge, work, but do the hard jobs. Lead soldiers, right? Be with soldiers in hard times, and look for jobs that require responsibility. You know, if you get a chance, be a drill sergeant. You know, it may suck, but it's a career enhancer. Be a recruiter, right? You know, and I'm talking, and it's like 10 days later, man. You know, we're talking about this kid's future, and he's excited. And 10 days later, man, that kid's gone. He committed suicide.
Damn.
Dude, breaks my heart now. You know, we're always, you know, at that time, when you're deploying and you're going through these gamuts and emotions, because they're there. We may not always let ourselves feel like they're there, right? The small things, right? And this kid was having some problems at home, which is a big thing. Don't get me wrong, but it made a drastic turn in his home, in his life at home, and it just turned everything that quickly. And I think about him in that conversation regularly.
You know, I gotta ask you this, Jack, because there's a lot of senior NCOs and leaders out there, you know, struggling to process this stuff, and you know, senior warrant officers, senior officers. There's a lot of people that we carry a lot of weight on our shoulders, and we can't show a sign of weakness. With the loss of Josh, the loss of this soldier, how did you as a first sergeant deal with this and still maintain your leadership position, still maintain your household, and still be present in a combat situation?
first thing you got to do is, at least my thoughts, you got to let yourself feel it, right? You got to let yourself feel it. You can't not feel it, okay? And you make yourself present with the soldiers that you have, right? You lost one. Don't lose the others by hiding away, right? Be present for them. Make them your focus, right? They're going to get you through it as much as you're going to get them through it. And, the ramp ceremony when Josh died, I had no idea who to be. None. We showed up there. And I remember all the warlords standing, and all the enlisted folks in particular. And I remember looking at him from a few feet away. Had no idea who to be. What should that measured response? Had no idea. And I walked into the middle of them, and I put my arms around as many of them as I could get, right? And I'd say shit for about 5. Animals. They were gonna know I was there, right?
Yep.
But I don't know, man. How do you?
It's tough, man.
You take it one emotion at a time, and you.
Yeah. It's tough, man. Even in the medevac, when I got to the medevac for the 12-13 deployment, I always gave my soldiers time to decompress if we had that time. And it's something you said very pivotal. And I want every leader, parent, a spouse, partner to know this. When somebody in your life is grieving or you're leading people, just be present. You don't have to say anything. Sometimes they just need a shoulder to cry on. They just need the safety and the sanctity of knowing that you are there. That is it. And if there's one thing I love about the Army is that we don't, and like you said, sometimes we do miss one, and maybe we don't convey that message strong enough. But I know through all the shitty times I've been through in the Army and the good times, I've always had people with me. Always. And that is something that I always will cherish, that, man, during my darkest times in life, there are people there for me, not even realizing that they're dealing with it as well, right? And that's one of the greatest things the Army, the military creates, is that brotherhood. Like, we're standing, we're there for each other. Even though we're civilians, we will always be there for each other. And that's something that is special.
Yeah, even somebody that on a regular basis, you're like totally opposite people. Like, there's no way you're going to like that dude, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of you will love that dude. You know what I'm saying? When he needs you, you're going to pick him up.
Yep.
And the same's going to happen the other way. Like, it's not about, well, this clique does this and that clique, none of that. Dude, if you're in an organization that's doing those kinds of things, you're in the wrong kind of organization.
Correct.
Like, you're right. There's folks are going to be there.
Always going to be there, man.
And
sometimes, I'll be honest, I miss that shit as a civilian, man.
Yeah.
There's some tough days and shit. I lean on people. I need people in my life. I'll always tell people, man, we as humans, we need each other. We just, if you don't believe that, talk to a veteran. Talk to a combat veteran. He'll tell you how important people are really in life. Because when you don't have them, man, that shit weighs you down.
Yep. It really does.
So your last deployment, let's talk about that. When you're in and this is crazy how our lives, you and our lives come full circle, all right? Because you were in a deployment for 2012 and 13, right?
Yeah.
So was I. And the crazy thing is we both were assigned I was a part of 217 Cav as well out in JBAD. I didn't even know that till today.
You were in JBAD then?
Yeah. I got to JBAD. Oh, you got there January 2012. When'd you leave?
I think I was only 9 months that deployment. So I left September, October.
See, I got to JBAD July. It was like July 10th, probably 2012. We replaced the 82nd guys. We were in the medevac though. We're in our own little section over there.
Right. Okay, you were on the other side of the airfield.
Correct.
Okay, that's probably why we never.
No, I was by the aid station in mortuary affairs.
Okay, I know where you're at. Yeah, you were down on the other end, the opposite end as the rest of us. Then you had the Chinooks across the way, I think.
Yeah, Chinooks were on the other side of the airfield.
They were on the other side, and we were down, on the down by the FARP.
Correct. That's where we're at. We're by the FARP.
Yeah.
So what'd you do with 217 Delta Company? Just maintenance?
No, I was the Delta Company first sergeant.
Oh, really?
No, yeah. When I left Alpha Company, I actually had a short stint as the HHC first sergeant in 6th Battalion. And
how did all that transpire? HHC, then going to 217?
Well, natural progression. You come from a line company. You go to a headquarters or a Delta, right? So, I guess I had done well enough as a line first sergeant that they gave me a headquarters company, and and that was all fine and good. I was good with that. But then the Delta Company 217 first sergeant submitted retirement paperwork, and they had to replace it. And the brigade sergeant major wanted me in a maintenance company. He was hell bent on me in a maintenance company. So that's where I wound up. So I had HHC for about maybe 5 months, and then moved me to. He was not hearing anything but me going to Delta 217. So that's where I went.
How was that? Your first maintenance company?
Man,
how was the experience being? You were the first sergeant of a line unit, went to combat. Now you're in another combat deployment, but you're the maintenance first sergeant now.
It suited me. It suited my experiences much better than being a line company. When you got depth of NCOs, levels of NCO leadership that you have, to teach, coach, and mentor, and to pull along, and rather than your line company is pretty much first sergeant, platoon sergeant, Joe. You know what I mean? And so when you get those, the larger structure of a maintenance company suited my leadership style better, I think. And we were very successful as a company. There was I made a lot of changes really quickly. Some appreciated immediately, some not appreciated until later on. But it was definitely the first time that I'd been there before was I'd known him for years. When I was a platoon sergeant at Fort Eustis in the transition company, he came through there doing the long road transition. I was his platoon sergeant. When I went to ANOC, he was my SGL in ANOC. Right? Like we had bounced back and forth one another, several times. We knew each other pretty well. And he did a great job. He was an Apache guy, and they tend to be different than Tangos or, so the Romeo's community was different. So, I definitely started making changes pretty quick. Not that it was bad, it just wasn't what I wanted. And, you know, platoon sergeants at that time, they were great. But they weren't, it's like they were idling. You know what I mean? And yeah, so I instilled some motivation to make some changes, and we were running, man. We were doing Black Hawk phases. You know, when we left, we were only given a contact team for Black Hawks. We were still turning out phases below the brigade standard on UH-60s with a contact team. But you know, I remember we were sitting in the DFAC right after we got there, and it just seemed like one thing after another. Brigade kept piling on. And that platoon sergeant's production control officer, company commander, we're sitting there, and I said, look, no matter what this deployment cost us, blood, sweat, tears, whatever that price is, we have to pay that price together, or we're not going to be successful. If you have, if a Black Hawk crew chief is working on a Black Hawk and a Kiowa mechanic has nothing, he better be doing whatever the hell he can do to support that Black Hawk.
That's right.
If all he can do is hand him tools and water, I don't care. If that's all he can do, he better be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If he can hold a bolt head while they torque, he better be doing that. Right? I don't care what however small what he can do is, he better be doing it.
That's right.
Right? Because otherwise, we're just going to flounder. Right? And, man, they took that mentality. And for those platoon sergeants, when they had what they I think, I don't know, they felt like they needed some cohesion, and I tried to be that cohesion, that glue in the middle. And man, those guys took off. It was crazy. Edgar Gonzalez, my maintenance platoon sergeant, command sergeant major now, excellent, so awesome. A couple of first sergeants out of there retired now. I think probably one of the things I think I'm proudest of when I look back at my career is the number of first sergeants that were platoon sergeants.
Damn.
The percentage. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Evidently I developed people the way I feel like I developed people the way I need to.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very few.
Well, that's just a sign of what you gained from being a drill sergeant, right?
I think so.
You know how to develop people into leaders.
Yeah. And I think that was a big part. Yeah.
Yeah.
That time.
And that says volumes about the leader you are. Like, you could inspire people to want to come together and show them their true potential.
Yeah.
When a leader could show the people that they're leading their true potential, that they believe in them, and inspire them to do that, and then pull a bunch of people together. Because I want everybody to know, when you got Cav and then you got the Blackhawks, right? Two different worlds. For you to come in and bring these communities together to work efficiently the way they did, that says volumes about who you are. Because that's what leaders are supposed to do. They're supposed to unite people, right? And move us forward. And you did just that. And that's huge, man.
And getting the platoon sergeants to buy off and doing it at their level too. I can do it by platoons all day, but until you platoon sergeants are looking at each other saying, "Hey man, what do you need?" without any input from me, right? When they got to be, "Hey, I got these two guys that aren't engaged. They can help you with this," right? Or just the willingness to say, "Hey, I need help," because nobody ever wants to be that guy that needs help, right? We struggle against that. But if you just say, "I need help," man, somebody will come and help you, you know? And so, so, getting those guys to be able to comfortable with one another to the point that they can volunteer help before it's asked for when they see it's needed, or ask for help when people don't see it. And, to be able to shift back and forth on, for tasking because, hey, I know that guy's inundated. I'm going to take care of that for him. Right. When you inspire them to work among themselves that way, man, there's no limit to where you can go.
Correct. That's huge. It's something I learned as a business owner. By yourself, you can get far, but to get somewhere where we're talking about your dreams are being accomplished, you need other people on your side.
Absolutely.
You need other people. And that's something I struggled with for a very long time. And you said it's a common thing we deal with in the military, right? In the Army.
Yeah, we all want to be independent. We all want to be that guy, right?
Correct. We don't want to ask for help, but not realizing that if you just ask for help, it'll save you so much damn time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a life lesson I guess we got to learn.
Well, when I was young, I didn't want to ask for help either, so.
Now I'm asking for help. It doesn't matter. Shit, if I need help, I'm asking for it.
Oh, yeah.
So during that deployment, you started realizing, all right, it's time for me to retire. I had a great career, but it's time for me to walk away from this.
Yeah, definitely. And there comes a point, Jason, I don't know if you ever felt it. I mean, I did a lot of physical jobs along the way that, I was getting to the point, man, that if I would go, literally, I would go run. If I went running, I would have to ice my knees for, a couple hours when I was done. I could run on Monday. Well, hell, I'm crippled on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday's run day again, and so, man, I was feeling the mileage, bro. I was feeling the mileage. And I was like, it's time. I remember when I was a young soldier and I would see guys retired and I would ask them, how do you know it's time to retire? And they would just say, man, you'll know,
You'll know.
And
just so you know, I deal with the physical ailments every day, man. And this is why I tell people why I work out as much as I do. Yeah. If I didn't, my back is destroyed. I mean, my L3 to 5 is garbage. I mean, I have back trouble every day. I have to sleep on like a piece of plywood, very firm mattress. I mean, this is how I move, but I keep my body moving for that reason. And same thing with the knees. But it's like you said, you'll know when it's time. Like, because the military is a young person. It really
is. It's a young man's game. It's a young man's game.
It is a young. You got to be young to keep up. And there's some studs out there, man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But and so how did that conversation go with your spouse, your wife, and how happy was she when you told her, you know what, I'm ready to go?
She was ready. Yeah, she was ready to. So I was definitely, we talked about this is, but finally I said, we sat down and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do the packet. Like I'm going to, and it was tough, man, because when I was in Jalalabad, they offered me the AJC Brigade first sergeant position, which, man, that's a sergeant major, man. You know what I mean? Like, I would have been a very, very viable candidate. But I just didn't have it. I didn't have the energy for it, And, being, when I think about being a sergeant major, it's like, hey, leading through policy is great, but never be as good as being a first sergeant. You know what I mean? Never be as good at looking soldiers in the face every day. And so I wasn't real motivated about the job. And so it was, I just definitely felt like it was time to go. And so we just sat down and I'm like, I'm going to do the packet. And she's like, okay, sounds good. And so that's where it went.
What'd you do once you retired?
I went to school full time.
I did the same thing. I took 2 years off of life, man. I went to school.
I got a bachelor's degree in geology from Austin P, which is pretty cool because my daughter graduated high school right after I retired, and she's a geologist as well. We took our courses together. man, just the ability to catch up, all those years in and out gone, to be able to spend that time at that level there was pretty awesome.
And this is something I talk about a lot. Fathers, it's never too late, man. Trust me, your kids understand what you're doing, right? As long as you got to make up the time later. Yep. You agree with me, Jack?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. When you can't have time, have your time. If you do that, then they'll understand when you don't.
They will understand, and they'll love you, man, especially your daughters. I got 2 daughters, and my baby girls, they love the hell out their daddy, and they love us different, man. I tell guys, listen, it is a blessing when God gives you a daughter. I'm telling you, man, it's something that you'll never encounter before. It's something special. As long as you're a good father, you got to be a good father. You have to be a good father. Okay,
at least make an effort to be a good father.
Correct, make an effort.
Just making the effort, man. They'll see an effort.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's not like they come with instruction manuals, right? Like when they're young, I mean, you got to figure stuff out, but make the effort.
Looking back, what is the biggest regret in your military career or in life?
Never been one to focus on regrets, so I really don't know how to answer the question. If I'm honest, like I said, we're gonna make mistakes, man. Things aren't gonna go our way. How we deal with it afterwards is the part that matters, man. And so, I think there are times I look back and we talk about being a father. There were times I look back and I was not, or probably not what I should have been. You know what I mean? Those are also times that I realized that and tried to make a change. So, if anything I learned from, I try not to have a regret about it. And so I'm not saying I don't have regrets. I'm sure I do. But they're not something I focus on. They may come to me at times, but I think, like I said, it's probably a bit arrogant or foolish to say I have no regrets. I'm sure that's not true, but no regret sticks out.
What lessons or takeaways do you want the audience to take from your stories or gain from your story?
Do what needs to be done. Care for your family. Do what you need to do. Right? Learn from your mistakes. Move forward. We've all made them. We're all going to make them. It's just life. Right? We're all human. There's no magic method. Okay? So, but regardless of the situation, get what information you can from it. Learn what you can from it, and move forward.
What legacy do you want to leave behind for your friends, your family, and for generations to come?
I want to leave, exactly what I feel like I've made. I feel like I'm there. I've made it. My daughter's an incredible young lady. She's about to have a baby in January. Married to a great dude. So she's well on her way with her career. She's doing what she's got to do. Right. I feel like I left a legacy in the Army with leaders that I trained and the leaders that they'll train. Right. That's the best any of us can do. And that's at least I can't think of anything else I'd rather do. Right. If I didn't, when I trained leaders to train leaders, man, that's impacting down the road. That's the long, right? So those are the legacies. Just a legacy of love and caring in my family. That's the one that matters. The silk.
What's Jack doing now? You're a civilian, loving life. I gotta ask you this question.
Getting by life,
Did you get 10 years of your life back when you retired from the Army?
I got a few back.
Yeah.
That's for sure. it's kind of like when I came up with the drill sergeant trail, I went to Afghanistan. I come back on mid-tour leave, and my wife's like, "You look 10 years younger than you did when you were a drill sergeant." Right? Like that's how much that sucked out of me, right? And definitely I'm a lot better now than I was, especially like the aches and pains. And yeah, I got aches and pains, but I don't have to ice my knees on a regular basis. You know what I mean? I'm not like, so, yeah, those, yeah, I definitely feel better now. But, I'm working for the Tennessee Department of Transportation, working in safety, which I never imagined myself there.
How'd you end up there?
Man, I graduated college, I got this brand new degree, and the reason I chose geology was because it kind of goes a lot of different directions. Like it can do a lot. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, so figure I'll maximize the odds, right? And but I was looking through some jobs as I was getting ready to graduate, and I don't know, there wasn't a whole lot really grabbing my attention. And I saw this position. The requirements matched up as far as, physical science degree and, those things. And, not a lot of money, but I mean, I got my retirement VA and stuff. I don't need a lot of money. I want to do a job I want to do. I want to do a job that's beneficial, right? So, look at I'll do an interview, right? And while I'm on my way to the interview, this dude, T-dot worker, was running across the interstate, right? He's out there picking up trash. He was running across the interstate. The tractor trailer next to me has to get on his brakes. I get on my brakes. I mean, it's like an ordeal, right? I'm like, well, they're looking for safety people. It makes sense, right? But when during the interview we were talking about, and basically their safety program had always been reactive. And one guy in the region, right, 22 counties, one dude. And what he did was, if there was an accident or an incident or somebody got hurt, he went and wrote down what happened, and that was all. Right? Like they had no preventative training. They didn't, so they were basically starting the program. That I had been looking for something where I felt like I could be beneficial. I've been struggling I struggled all my whole way in college with the fact that I was only benefiting me. I felt selfish, right? I wasn't impacting anything. So when I started this job, I'm like, man, I might be able to make an impact, a positive change for somebody, right? Like, it just seemed to work out. New program, they needed people that could train. So it seemed like a good fit. And so, I did a little research. The cost of living out here was way better than Middle Tennessee. So my retirement dollars are going to go farther. The job, I think, is going to be rewarding. So here I am, 6 years later, and I still enjoy the job. So it's good.
How'd you get all that land and the cows?
I always said, look, when I buy my forever home, I don't want to look at anybody else's shit.
I feel you, bro. I feel you, man.
Look out my front. When I walk out of my front porch, I'm gonna see my shit.
Exactly.
Right.
I feel you, man.
And so I found this place. I was living in. First, my wife stayed up in Clarksville. My daughter was still in college, and I got a little apartment down in Jackson. I was kind of running back and forth on the weekends, while I was looking for a place. And I don't know. I ran across this place. I just one day I pulled up, Zillow or one of those million friggin' real estate sites, and wow, looks like what I might be looking for. And it had been on the market, I don't know, 3 days when I made an offer like that. But it was definitely what I was looking for. I don't have to look at nobody else's shit.
Damn, that's dope. That's dope, man.
But you know, it had pasture and it had cows on it at the time, so just there's a guy down the road for me that I mean, he's done cattle for 50 years, you know, here in West Tennessee. He's, you know, was a member of the National Beef Council. I mean, he's super smart guy with cattle, and so he's helped me out a lot in you know, helping me buy cattle and move cows, and you know, just teaches me about cows. So you know, I'm learning and just doing it.
Man, shit. What's the one thing you would tell the younger Jack if you can go back and tell him?
I don't know that I'd want to tell him anything. I don't know that I want to change it. I want him to turn into exactly what he is right now.
That's good.
You know, but be patient. It's gonna happen. It's gonna come. Just be patient. Work hard. It's gonna come.
Damn. Is there anywhere where we could find you on social media if somebody wants to reach out to you?
You know, I'm on Facebook, Jack Allen Dingus. So if you want to find me on Facebook, feel free.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because you work for TDOT. That's a state job. There may be veterans out there that could use your assistance on how to get into the state, because hell, I even try to apply to the state myself, and that's something that I like to, you know, put you guys out there so you could help those other veterans or the civilians. We're civilians now, obviously, but other people that they could hit you up and be like, hey, how'd you do that? Can I get your help? And
absolutely, feel free. I'd be glad to, you know, I'll send you job listings as they come up. I'll do, you know, if I can help anybody out there, I'm happy to do whatever I can for you. Veterans in particular, it's, you know, they do have a preference with the state, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah. What do you do now to decompress?
I work on a farm.
Now, do you do it by yourself, or your wife does it with your? It's just alone time.
She does some too, but you know, usually it's just me.
Yeah.
You know, she like gardens and those kinds of things. You know, for me, it's, you know, maybe fixing fence or whatever. You know, just, you know, whatever needs done, and you know, so you know, that's always been a big, you know, just being able to be outside doing something.
Yeah.
You know, is always a benefit. So that's generally.
The world needs leaders like you. I really mean that. And I think if I had to describe you, leadership is one. Compassionate, dedication. I could go on for days. Okay. And be social. Don't put yourself in that box. You're a great dude. The world needs to know you. They need to hear your story. And you are going to inspire a lot of people. All right, because people need inspiration. They need role models. They need mentors. And I'm not telling you to take any of that on, but don't hide your gifts either, because you are gifted, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. You know, I can't say enough. Again, I just want to say, brother, you are killing, and I'm so proud of you.
I appreciate that.
You know, just watching your growth on social media from a distance over the last few years, dude, been so proud. So keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing great. I appreciate the hell out of you.
I appreciate it, man. What would you like to tell the audience? Last thing Jack would like to tell the audience here on Heroes Have Wings. What's the last thing you want to tell them?
If you need help, ask for help. Look, there is no reason for us to suffer needlessly. If you think you might need help, talk to somebody, right? Talk to a professional. There's no shame in it, right? Look, I've often said this. Maybe it'll resonate, maybe it won't. I don't know. But, if you think seeking counseling is weakness, I will tell you that not seeking counseling because you're afraid of what somebody else thinks, that's weakness, right? Look, if you need help, get help, please. Too many of us are going. That should not be. So that's the parting message I want. Please do that. If you need help, get help.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Dingus. Jack, I want to tell you I love you, man. And like I said, when I first started, it was very refreshing to see you. And you're here in Nashville. Come see me. We could go out to eat, chop it up a little bit, spend some time together. I'm truly thankful for you, for the memories we've had together. All right. Just our first meeting, you spending this time with me. And remember what I said, man, you are a true American hero. The world needs to know who you are. Share those gifts that you have with the world, man, because you just touched my life in these last 3 hours. Like, you are the first person to literally make me cry on this show. Okay. And I want you to know that you are a gift to so many people. And I just want you to know that. All right. You're a special human being. Continue to do great things. I love you, brother. If you need anything from me, don't hesitate to call. All right. I'm coming. That's it.
Appreciate you, bro.
I tell everybody I'm coming. All right.
Like, love you, brother. You be safe. All right.
Love you too, man. Thank you for tuning in to Heroes Have Wings, where we honor the extraordinary stories of grit, sacrifice, and resilience. Remember, every hero's journey starts with a single step, so take yours today. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep pushing limits, breaking barriers, and living your truth. I'm your host, Jason Santiago, and this is Heroes Have Wings, where legends rise.
Full court press starts with the quick response of these medevac helicopters, flying emergency rooms. Staff Sergeant Danny Stevenson is a flight medic with the Army's 57th Medical Evacuation Company. Back on September 11th, 2001, he was a staff medic at the Pentagon, treating the wounded. After 9/11, he asked the Army to send him overseas.
They called you. You don't have backup. You are the backup. So if you can't get the job done, nobody else can. It's a lot of pressure. And I can handle that kind of pressure.
Helicopter units like this one are spread out all over Iraq so that no injured man or woman is more than 20 or 25 minutes from their reach. It's all about what the doctors call the golden hour, that first hour after the injury when a Marine or a soldier can easily bleed to death. Speed is everything.
The medevac helicopters are sometimes fired on, and there's always the possibility of an ambush on the ground.
You ever scared?
I don't get scared.
No, come on now. Everybody gets scared.
I mean, some stuff freaks me out sometimes, but if you freak out on the scene, you're just going to lose control of it. If you lose control of it, you're going to die.
We put a camera on Stevenson's helmet to see what he sees. She's the company medic, treating 2 soldiers hit by a roadside bomb. The wounded were Iraqi. Stevenson signaled an L for litters or stretchers to be brought over.
Let's go. Let's go.
Just 17 minutes take off to touchdown. The wounded reach the hospital, and they will survive.
No one dies on the back of my helicopter. I'll do CPR all the way into the end. They die in the hospital, and that's where it stays.
You keep them alive.
That's right. I breathe for them, I beat for them, I do everything I can for them.